Naam, assalamu alaikum mpenzi mtazamaji popote pale ulipo, hujambo na karibu kwenye taarifa hizi za Darubini ya Channel 1.
Karibu mpenzi mtazamaji, ikiwa ni siku ya 19 mwezi Disemba mwaka 2024, ni fahari yetu kukuletea taarifa zetu za Darubini, ikiwa ni siku ambayo imejaa taarifa tele.
Naam, bila shaka mtazamaji, kwanza tuanze na methali ya siku, ambayo methali ya leo inasema maji marefu muulize chura. Maji marefu muulize chura. Je, unajua maana ya methali hii?
Mtazamaji, lako ni kufululiza hadi katika mitandao yetu ya kijamii utueleze maana ya methali yetu ya siku, halafu kabla ya kutamatisha taarifa zetu kama ilivyoada, tutapitia baadhi ya jumbe zenu ambazo mmetuma siku ya leo.
Hivi sasa mtazamaji, tumpishe Gladys atupatie vidokezo vya siku ya leo.
The Inspector General of Police has formed a specialized missing persons unit domiciled at the DCI Homicide Unit to deal with cases of femicide.
Kitengo maalum cha kufuatilia watu ambao hawajulikani walipotabuniwa ili kusaidia kutafuta watu wanaotoweka hapa nchini. Wakazi wa eneo la kaskazini mashariki wahimizwa kushiriki katika shughuli ijayo ya utoaji chanjo ya mifugo.
The last orders we have are the orders of the 4th of August 2024, and those orders remain active, meaning that our members are supposed to be at work and our members are also supposed to have been receiving their salaries.
Na chama cha matabibu hapa nchini chatoa wito wa kurejeshwa kazini kwa matabibu 46 waliofutwa kazi na serikali ya kaunti ya Kirinyaga mwaka 2019.
Assalamu alaikum mpenzi mtazamaji, naitwa Ahmed Jumabalo, ukipenda niite AJB.
Mtazamaji, mimi naitwa Gladys Mungai, karibu.
Na mtazamaji, anatusaidia kwa upande wa lugha ishara ni Brian Moraru, na kama unavyoona hivi sasa katika runinga yako ni kwamba kuna habari ambazo tumezipokea katika chumba chetu cha habari muda mfupi uliopita, na kwamba kiongozi wa taifa Rais William Ruto amefanya mabadiliko katika idara tofauti za kiserikali. Kubwa zaidi ni baraza la mawaziri. Na
mtazamaji, kuna watu watatu ambao wameteuliwa kuingia rasmi katika baraza la mawaziri, huku mawaziri wengine wakipata uhamisho kutoka wizara ambao wanafanya kazi hadi katika wizara nyingineo. Bado pengine tukiwataarifu watazamaji kuhusiana na baadhi ya mawaziri ambao wameteuliwa siku ya leo na wanasubiri ile kusailiwa na bunge la kitaifa. Ni aliyekuwa waziri wa afya ambaye ni Mutahi Kagwe, ambaye kwa sasa ameteuliwa kufanyia taifa la Kenya kazi katika wizara ya kilimo.
Na vile vile mtazamaji, mwingine ni Lee Kinyanjui ambaye ameteuliwa kushikilia uongozi wa wizara ya uwekezaji, viwanda na biashara. Mtazamaji,
na watatu ambaye atajiunga na baraza la mawaziri iwapo bunge la kitaifa litampitisha ni aliyekuwa gavana wa Kiambu Andrew, ambaye ni William Kabogo, kunradhi, na William Kabogo ameteuliwa kujiunga na baraza la mawaziri katika wizara ya masuala ya habari na mawasiliano.
Na mtazamaji, miongoni mwa mawaziri ambao wamebadilishwa kutoka wizara moja hadi nyingine ni waziri Kipchumba Murkomen ambaye alikuwa akishikilia wizara ya michezo. Hivi sasa amepelekwa katika wizara ya usalama wa kitaifa.
Naam, bado hiyo wizara ya usalama wa ndani wa kitaifa ni wizara ambao Wakenya walisubiria kwa wakati kuona ni nani atakayeteuliwa katika wizara hiyo, na baada ya nipe nikupe na wengine kusema pengine huyu ndiye anayefaa zaidi, basi yule waziri wa masuala ya vijana na michezo Kipchumba Murkomen amepata uhamisho hadi katika wizara ya usalama wa ndani, naye Salim Mvurya ambaye alikuwa waziri wa masuala ya kibiashara amepata uhamisho na atakuwa anachukua nafasi ya iliyoachwa wazi na itakayoachwa wazi na Kipchumba Murkomen iwapo basi atapitishwa na bunge la kitaifa. Lakini kadhalika, kutokana na hayo ni kwamba pia Rais William Ruto amefanya mabadiliko zaidi katika wanachama wa bodi mbalimbali zikiwemo bodi ya KRA, bodi ya barabara ya kura na bodi ya hospitali ya rufaa ya KU. Balo, mabadiliko mengine ni yapi pengine?
Na mtazamaji, mabadiliko mengine ni katika masala ya kigeni, idara ya masala ya kigeni. Nikiangalia hapa naona kwamba Margaret Nyambura Ndung'u atakuwa balozi wa taifa hili letu la Kenya nchini Ghana, na vile vile Ababu Namwamba atakuwa ndiye mwakilishi wa kudumu katika, ataiwakilisha Kenya katika umoja wa kimataifa upande wa mazingira. Na
mtazamaji, na pengine kukuarifu na la mwisho ni kwamba waziri wa sasa wa kilimo ambaye ni Daktari Andrew Karanja basi ameteuliwa atakapoacha wizara yake kuelekea kuwakilisha taifa la Kenya katika taifa la Brazil, kuwa wa balozi wa taifa hili katika taifa hilo. Mtazamaji, hizo ni baadhi ya taarifa ambazo tumepata tu muda mfupi uliopita, na kwa sasa mtazamaji, hebu tukutaarifu na taarifa nyinginezo ambazo tumekuandalia mchana wa leo.
Na kitengo maalum cha watu waliopotea kimebuniwa kusaidia kuwatafuta watu wanaotoweka humu nchini.
Waziri mwenye mamlaka makuu zaidi ambaye pia ni kaimu waziri wa usalama wa kitaifa Musalia Mudavadi amesema kwamba kitengo hicho kitakuwa cha chini ya idara ya uchukuzi wa kesi za ama ni uchunguzi wa kesi za jinai DCI.
Aidha, Mudavadi alisema kwamba DCI imekamilisha uchunguzi wa jumla wa visa 7107 vya dhulma za kimapenzi na zile za kijinsia zilizoripotiwa baina ya mwezi Septemba mwaka 2023 kufikia sasa.
Mtazamaji, awali Mudavadi alizindua ripoti ya kuhusiana na amani iliyoeleza kwamba ukabila ndio unaochangia zaidi mizozo hapa nchini.
Serikali imekariri kujitolea kwake kuhakikisha usalama wa Wakenya wote huku mwaka 2024 ukielekea kukamilika. Waziri mwenye mamlaka makuu aliyepewa waziri wa usalama wa kitaifa Musalia Mudavadi amesema kati ya visa hivyo 7107 vya dhuluma za kijinsia, visa 100 vilihusisha wanawake waliouawa kati ya mwezi Agosti na Novemba mwaka huu.
Nairobi County recorded the highest number of SGBV cases, while Samburu and Manyara counties had the lowest incidence.
Serikali pia inajivunia kupungua kwa visa vya wizi wa mifugo katika eneo la North Rift kwa 62% kutokana na operesheni ya maliza uhalifu, huku Mudavadi akisema washukiwa 250 wakiwemo wanasiasa 14 walikamatwa na kufikishwa mahakamani katika kipindi hicho.
Following the resultant peace in the once volatile area, the government has completed rebuilding 11 primary schools. 5 others are under rehabilitation, while we project to rehabilitate 9 more for use during the first term of next year.
Cha kusikitisha ni kuwa raia 179 na maafisa 4 wa usalama waliuawa. Awali Mudavadi alizindua ripoti kuhusu ukuzaji wa amani ambayo inataja ukabila kuwa kiini kikubwa zaidi cha mizozo hapa nchini. Ripoti hiyo inapendekeza kujitolea kwa serikali kushughulikia viini vya muda mrefu na vinavyochipuka vya mizozo na kufanyia mageuzi taasisi za kitaifa za ukuzaji amani, miongoni mwa mapendekezo mengine katika kukabiliana na mizozo hapa nchini. Tilio Marco, Darubini.
Mtazamaji, kabla ya kuendelea na taarifa zetu jioni ya leo, kumbuka kwamba siku ya leo pia shirika la utangazaji nchini KBC limebahatika kuwa na mazungumzo ya moja kwa moja na naibu wa rais Profesa Kithure Kindiki. Hizo ni picha za moja kwa moja kutoka afisi yake ya Karen, ambapo wanahabari wakiongozwa na mwanahabari mwenza wa KBC ambaye ni John Jacob Kioria tayari wako hapo kwa mahojiano hayo.
Na mtazamaji, endelea kutazama runinga hii ya kitaifa ya KBC Channel 1. Bila shaka tutakuletea mahojiano hayo moja kwa moja kutoka makao ya naibu rais Profesa Kithure Kindiki mtaani Karen. Na kwingineko
tukisubiria kuanzishwa kwa mahojiano hayo rasmi, na kama alivyosema mtazamaji mwenzangu Balo kwamba punde tu mahojiano hayo yatakapokuwa yanaanza, basi tutavuka moja kwa moja hadi mtaani Karen. Lakini mtazamaji, kumbuka cha mno kwamba jioni ya leo ni kwamba kuna mabadiliko katika baraza la mawaziri, ambapo wanasiasa 3 hivi wameteuliwa kujiunga na baraza la mawaziri, na nafikiri Balo hiyo inamaanisha kwamba wakati wowote kutoka sasa tunamtarajia spika wa bunge bunge la kitaifa, akaweza kuwaita wabunge waje katika bunge ili pengine kuanza kuwasaili walioteuliwa kutoa huduma katika baraza la mawaziri. Na
mtazamaji, kumbuka ni lazima majina yaliyoteuliwa na kiongozi wa taifa yafikishwe bungeni ili kama alivyosema Gladys wasailiwe, na tuone iwapo watapitishwa na kama wametosha mboga ya kuhudumu kama mawaziri.
Haya basi, tutakuwa tunakuletea taarifa hizo mtazamaji. Na kwingineko ni kwamba maafisa wa polisi wameanzisha msako wa uhalifu katika maeneo ya Ruiru katika kaunti ya Kiambu mtazamaji, na anayedaiwa kuhusika katika shughuli hiyo mtazamaji ni tukio la ubakaji na mauaji ya mwanamke mwenye umri wa miaka 62 mjini Ruiru katika kaunti ya Kiambu. Na mwanamke huyo alishambuliwa wakati wa alfajiri mnamo Jumanne alipokuwa akitembea kwenye daraja la Ruiru akitoroka eneo la Matangiini kuelekea mahali pake pa kazi kwenye shamba la kahawa lililoko mjini Ruiru.
Vitengo vya polisi vikiongozwa na kamanda wa kaunti ya Kiambu Michael Mushiri vilizuru eneo la tukio baada ya kupokea taarifa kutoka kwa umma kwamba ajuza alipatikana kwenye barabara akivuja damu kwa wingi kabla kupelekwa katika hospitali ya gereza la Ruiru na baadaye akahamishwa hadi hospitali ya Nairobi Women alikofariki akipokea matibabu.
A 62-year-old was raped here some 2 days ago, and we are sad also to report that she's passed on this morning. We already picking up some very crucial information, very crucial leads. Of course, we cannot be able to talk about them at this moment, but in the fullness of time, we are going to progress this matter.
Mushiri amesema mwathiriwa alibakwa kabla ya mshukiwa kumdunga kwa kifaa chenye makali na kumwacha kivuja damu.
It's an abomination. Raping a 62-year-old grandmother, it never used to happen. So again, it's a call to the community. It's a call to religious leaders and the community at large that we need to reset and get back to our value systems so that things like this are not allowed to happen again.
Mushiri alielezea uhalifu huo kwa kikatili. Alisema maafisa kutoka idara ya uchunguzi wa kesi za jinai tayari wamepata njia muhimu zitakazowasaidia kumtia mshukiwa nguvuni. Kamanda wa polisi wa kaunti ndogo ya Ruiru Alex Shikondi ametoa wito kwa umma kujitolea kutoa habari ambazo zitawasaidia polisi kumnasa mshukiwa. Kasi cha Namasha, Darubini.
Na mtazamaji, tukukumbushe habari za hivi sasa ambazo tumezipokea katika chumba chetu cha habari ni kwamba kiongozi wa taifa Rais William Ruto amefanya mabadiliko katika idara tofauti, kubwa zaidi ikiwa ni baraza la mawaziri, na kuna wale ambao wamebahatika kuteuliwa kuongoza wizara tofauti. Tukianza naye aliyekuwa wakati mmoja waziri wa afya Mutahi Kagwe, hivi sasa ameteuliwa kuwa waziri wa wizara ya ukulima na mifugo. Hivi sasa itakuwa ni Mutahi Kagwe.
Na mtazamaji, mwingine aliyebahatika ni aliyekuwa gavana wa kaunti ya Nakuru ambaye ni Lee Kinyanjui, ambaye ameteuliwa kwa katibu ama waziri katika wizara ya masuala ya biashara na uwekezaji pamoja na viwanda. Na kumbuka mtazamaji, huu uteuzi umefanywa kulingana na kipengee cha katiba nambari 152.
Na mtazamaji, mwingine ni aliyekuwa gavana wakati mmoja pia William Kabogo, atakuwa waziri wa habari, mawasiliano na vile vile uchumi dijitali. William Kabogo aliyekuwa wakati mmoja gavana wa Kiambu.
Naam, mtazamaji, hayo yakiwa mabadiliko katika baraza la mawaziri na wengine wakitolewa katika wizara walizoko na kipendekezwa kuchukua nyadhifa hizo katika wizara nyinginezo. Katika taarifa nyingine ni kwamba viongozi kutoka kaunti ya Kaskazini Mashariki mtazamaji wameshauriwa wakazi na kushiriki kikamilifu katika shughuli ya kitaifa ya chanjo ya mifugo inayotarajiwa kuanza mwezi Januari mwakani.
Akizungumza wakati wa mashindano ya usomaji wa Qur'an katika kaunti ya Mandera, waziri wa mazingira, mabadiliko ya tabia nchi na misitu Aden Duale aliwaambia wafugaji kwamba chanjo hiyo inalenga kukabiliana na magonjwa ya mifugo na kuboresha uzalishaji.
Akizungumza katika kaunti ya Mandera, waziri wa mazingira Aden Duale aliutetea mpango wa serikali wa kutoa chanjo ya kitaifa kwa mifugo, akisema ni mpango utakaotoa fursa ya mabadiliko kwa wafugaji.
We could not access Middle East market. We could not access European markets as pastoralists because of FMD and PPR. Mr. President, we are behind you. Come January, we will be standing. Come to Manyara, we will launch. Come to Regina, we will launch. Come to Garissa. Don't listen to the naysayers.
Duale alisisitiza kwamba chanjo hizo zilizotengenezewa hapa nchini na taasisi ya uzalishaji wa chanjo ya mifugo ni muhimu kwa kuwalinda mifugo na kuimarisha uchumi kwa wafugaji.
We agreed for the first time in the history of independent Kenya. President Jomo Kenyatta never did it. President Moi never did it. President Kibaki never did it, and President Uhuru never did it. President Ruto said we are going to carry out mass vaccination of all the animals in the Republic of Kenya.
Gavana wa kaunti ya Mandera Mohamed Khalif alielezea kuwajibika kwa serikali ya kaunti yake na akaahidi kuongoza kampeni ya chanjo hiyo. Viongozi hao walipuuza wenzao waliopinga shughuli hiyo, wakiwashutumu kwa kuwapotosha wa Kenya.
We need to take the advice. Hii maneno ya social media, wale ambao hata hawana ng'ombe ndio wanaongea mambo ya ng'ombe, mambo ya gamia. I think it's not right. Hii program tuko na wataalamu, we have experts from this region. We need to have a meeting and then engage our people. This propaganda, people like listening to lies. And everything you do as government or as a leader, there are people who are always ready to criticize without even finding whether what they are criticizing is true or false.
Mpango huo wa chanjo unanuia kutoa chanjo kwa takriban ng'ombe milioni 22 dhidi ya ugonjwa wa miguu na midomo na mbuzi na kondoo milioni 50 dhidi ya ugonjwa wa sotoka. Isho Kiwashira, Darubini.
This festive season, let the joy of togetherness fill your hearts and homes. Celebrate responsibly. Report illegal alcohol and drug activities in your area. This festive season, let's protect what matters most, our lives and those we love. Celebrate responsibly.
Na mtazamaji, karibu tena. Kabla ya kusonga mbele, tunakumbusha habari za hivi punde ni kwamba Rais William Ruto amependekeza watu kadhaa kuchukua uongozi wa wizara tofauti, na kama unavyoona Mutahi Kagwe amependekezwa kuchukua wizara ya kilimo na ustawi wa ufugaji.
Mtazamaji, alikuwa gavana wa kaunti ya Nakuru Lee Kinyanjui amependekezwa katika ule wadhifa wa waziri wa biashara na uwekezaji pamoja na masuala ya viwanda.
Na aliyewahi kuhudumu kama gavana wa Kiambu wakati mmoja William Kabogo amependekezwa kushikilia wizara ya habari, mawasiliano na uchumi dijitali.
Na mtazamaji, uteuzi mwingine ni uteuzi wa mabalozi ambapo Margaret Ndung'u ambaye kwa sasa anahudumu kama waziri wa masuala ya habari na mawasiliano amependekezwa kuhudumu katika ubalozi wa Kenya kule nchini Ghana.
Naye Ababu Namwamba amependekezwa kuwakilisha Kenya katika makao ya Umoja wa Mataifa upande wa mazingira jijini Nairobi. Dorothea Angote Zimbabwe na vilevile Andrew Karanja atawakilisha Kenya nchini Brazil.
Na mtazamaji, baadhi ya mawaziri waliohamishwa ni Waziri Salim Mvurya ambaye amehamishwa hadi wizara ya michezo na masuala ya vijana.
Na Kipchumba Murkomen alikuwa akishikilia wizara hiyo ya michezo na masuala ya vijana, hivi sasa amependekezwa kuongoza wizara ya usalama wa kitaifa.
Mtazamaji, kumbuka kwamba tulipokuwa tunaanza taarifa hizi tulikuelezea kwamba tunayo mahojiano ya leo, mahojiano maalum na naibu wa rais Profesa Kithure Kindiki, ambao ni mahojiano ambayo yanatarajiwa kuanza muda wowote kutoka sasa. Nafikiri mtazamaji wetu atatupatia picha za Karen za moja kwa moja tuone ni yapi ambayo yanaendelea huko, lakini kabla hayo mtazamaji, ni kwamba ni matayarisho yanayoendelea katika afisi ya naibu wa rais katika eneo la Karen, wanahabari wakiwa wanajimwaya na kujipanga zikiwa ni kupanga vipodozi ni dakika za mwisho kabla ya mahojiano hayo kung'oa nanga.
Na mtazamaji, usiende mbali, kwani tunasubiri wakati wowote naibu rais ajitokeze, na sisi hapa takuwa yetu yamekwisha. Tutakupeleka moja kwa moja hadi Karen upate kumsikia ana yapi ya kukuelezea kama Mkenya.
Haya, tukisubiri ya Karen yang'oe nanga katika kaunti ya Kirinyaga, mtazamaji, chama cha matabibu hapa nchini kimetoa wito wa kurejeshwa kazini kwa matabibu 46 waliofutwa kazi na serikali ya kaunti ya Kirinyaga mwaka 2019.
Maafisa hao walitimuliwa baada ya kushiriki kwenye mgomo wa kitaifa ambapo mkuu wa sekta hiyo wa kaunti hiyo alipata agizo la mahakama lililotangaza mgomo huo kuwa haramu.
Mtazamaji, serikali ya kaunti hiyo haijawarejesha kazini licha ya uteuzi ama uamuzi wa mahakama. Na mtazamaji, sasa tunaarifiwa tuvuke kwa njia moja kwa moja
hadi Karen. Na mtazamaji, hivi sasa tukupeleke Karen tupate mahojiano ambayo tumekuahidi ya naibu rais Profesa Kithure Kindiki akiwa na kikao na wanahabari mbalimbali.
Na mtazamaji, mimi naitwa Gladys Mungai, kwa heri kwa sasa.
Mimi naitwa Ahmed Jumabalo, ukipenda niite AJB. Brian Moraro amekuwa msaidizi wetu kwa upande wa lugha ishara. Asalamu alaykum.
Rake mitambo ya seta usisikwa. Who is this on this side? Is that Michelle? Yes? Yes? Anasema nini? So nisitoe ama anataka aje? Sema Timo. Yeah.
Hujambo mtazamaji, ni takriban siku 50 tangu kuapishwa kwa naibu rais Profesa Abraham Kithure Kindiki, wadhifa uliotanguliwa na miaka miwili ya usimamizi tata kwenye Wizara ya Usalama na Masuala ya Ndani ya nchi. Hii leo kwenye mkao wake wa kwanza kama naibu rais atakuwa anawaelezea Wakenya kuhusu wadhifa wake mpya pamoja na ajenda za serikali. Mimi ni Mashirima Kapombe kutoka runinga ya Citizen, lakini niko na wenzangu kutoka mashirika mbalimbali ya habari.
My name is Joel Chacha from K24 TV.
My name is Michelle Ngele Odhiambo from NTV.
And I am John Jacob Kuria from the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation.
I am Ashley Mazuri from KTN.
Good evening, I'm George Maringa from Cape Media Limited, TV47.
Karibu Professor, na asante sana kwa muda wako. This interview will be conducted in both English and Kiswahili, so feel free to express yourself in the language that you feel most comfortable. Now let's start with the elephant in the room. When we publicized this interview, some of the reactions that we received were quite hostile on your person. And I'll read some of those responses that we got. One said, cancel that interview. Another one said, not worth my time. Another one called you a butcher and a murderer. Another said, who killed protesters under his leadership? Now, why would this interview generate so much hostility on your person? And why do you think Kenyans feel tonight whatever you have to say is not of value to them?
First, I appreciate and thank you for having me on this broadcast. It is, maybe I'll start by saying that not everyone is saying what you read out. There are others who are saying other things. But that is still okay because it is the right of the people of Kenya to express themselves on what they think about their leaders, especially political leaders. And therefore, mine is to confirm that because I've been in public life for a while, in various capacities, I have endeavored to do my best to my country, and I have no regret for anything. Maybe lessons learned, which is a common human thing that perhaps there are things I've picked along the way. But in terms of my public duty and commitment to our national interest, I have been extremely clear on what is expected of me in the various roles that I have played in this country.
As Interior CS, where Kenyans feel that you oversaw massive brutality on Kenyans who are expressing themselves when they felt that their leaders were not representing them in the way that they should, do you take personal responsibility for the murder of 60 people, according to the KMCHR?
Well, the violent protest that took place early this year and even earlier on in 2023 unfortunately led to loss of lives. Some of those lives were lost in various ways, including through police action. I have no reason to take responsibility for anything because the space of violence and encounter with law enforcement is a space which is defined by law. And the role of the Minister for Interior is defined in the Constitution, Article 245, on what that role is. And that role includes providing policy guidance to the organs of internal security. The role of police operations are protected through the mandate of independent command of the Inspector General, and therefore police operations, especially in engaging protesters or people who are seen as breaching the peace, is the province for the independent command of the National Inspector General of the National Police Service. As far as I'm concerned, the 2 years I have been the country's Interior Minister, every single day of them, when I woke up to do my work, to make sure that the security organs of our country that protect our country from threats, security threats, perform their work, and should they require any policy guidance, that guidance is provided. And that's all what I can say for now.
So you're saying tonight that you have no say whatsoever when the police misbehave?
The Interior Minister has no role in police operations, according to Article 245.
So you have no say whatsoever when they go wrong? As a professor of law?
I have a say, and I said it. And the say is this, that police officers are allowed to use force, including lethal force, in exceptional circumstances. Should any officer violate the strict parameters of those circumstances, they are accountable under the law. And we said many times, not once, not even in the context of the protests alone, but also in the context of the fight against terror and the fight against banditry and other organized crime. That any police officer who uses their firearm lawfully within the Constitution, including lethal force, has legal protection. But so any of them who exceeds the parameters of the Constitution is on their own, and the organs of accountability is not the Interior Minister. It is the agencies such as IPOA and the DPP and the rest.
So who shot at David Chege at the precincts of Parliament and Erickson Chalo Mutisia? These two young men were not armed. Would you say that use of live ammunition was reasonable?
I think the matter of the violence that occurred in Parliament and the unfortunate loss of life is a matter that which is actively being investigated by IPOA and other agencies. So it would be preemptive for me to tell you who shot the two Kenyans who unfortunately, according to the records, lost their lives in that context.
So how far are the investigations? You're the DP now. You may have moved on to a different role, but it's definitely senior to...
I'm aware that there are two ways of conducting investigations. One is through the internal affairs unit of the police. But our policy in the last 2 years, while we were in that docket, we discouraged the internal affairs unit of the police from being the ones to investigate their colleagues, because it raises issues of conflict of interest, and perhaps perceptions of bias. So we encourage the Independent Police Oversight Authority to be the one to do the investigations. The report I had when I left the ministry is that they had made some good progress. They reported to me they had some 6 files which are ready from the context of the riots and the violence around that time. But there has been a transition in the leadership of IPOA right now. A new commission has just been put in place, and the work of IPOA is led by commissioners. It's not led by the Secretariat. So the delay in the last 2-3 months could be associated to the leadership transition by IPOA.
Ashley and George, have follow-ups. Ashley? All right, Your Excellency, you have made a name for yourself as a defender of human rights. Are you proud about the events that occurred in June this year? I mean, this led to deaths of young, innocent Kenyans. Where does this sit as, to you, the professor of human rights, not as the deputy president, but as the professor of human rights?
Any Kenyan, not to mention a professor of law, who would be proud by what happened in our country June, July, from whatever angle, would be inappropriately doing so. Because those events were extremely painful to the country. They were unnecessary, if I may say so, because there is a way of processing democratic encounters, and there's a way in which the balances between the protection of public safety and the expression of individual rights and freedoms must help us navigate peaceful and orderly society. So to answer your question, I wouldn't be proud at all.
Mr. Deputy President, then what did you have to say to families who are still looking for their loved ones? For instance, on X, we were tagged and someone said, I always communicate with Peter Masharia's mom. Imagine she wakes up every day to go to the mortuary. Peter Masharia went missing on the 25th of June. Tonight, what do you tell those families that are still looking for their loved ones?
To the families who lost their loved ones or whose loved ones are still missing, I would say that it's unfortunate that this country went through what it went through in June, July. I hope that our country has learned the lessons and we will not get there again, because losing a loved one, having a loved one missing for months, almost half a year, even for a day, is extremely painful. And therefore, as I said when I responded to this matter earlier on, maybe not on this forum, it is very unfortunate, and we, including myself, are there again.
Yet when they look at you, Professor, they say you are the face of, disappearances, abductions, deaths and murders on young people in this country. Do you feel that you're struggling to shake off that tag?
Not at all,
okay.
Because it is not true. So I don't struggle at all.
So then
Your Excellency, the families that were bereaved pleaded with the government of the day to help them with burial expenses. Did that happen? How much was spent? And there was a committal to compensate families that lost their beloved ones. What's the status of that, Deputy President?
To the best of my knowledge, a number of families were given modest ex gratia support on a request basis and on a basis of confidentiality, because what the state does in a situation like that, when there is distress in the country, citizens are facing distress, we go out of our way for ways of supporting. But normally that support is support which, first of all, is not budgeted for, so we have to look for ways of, within the security budget, absorbing some of those costs. And if I recall well, a number of families were supported on an ex gratia basis. The question of compensation is a little more complex and will require guidance, because no law would allow expenditure on compensation for events similar to what we had. I am aware, even in more extreme cases like terrorist-related deaths and injury, it is anticipated that victims of terrorist crimes and other violent acts would be compensated. And I think when we left the ministry, we were trying to develop regulations on the operationalization of Section 49 of the Prevention of Terrorism Act. And I think that can form a basis of thinking of how else or in which other circumstances perhaps extreme cases of loss and injury could be compensated. So that's a discussion we are having, and I'm more than willing to follow up. Even in my new role, nothing prevents me from following up and ensuring that in justifiable cases which are defined by law, where injury or loss happens and the law allows, then compensation can ensue.
So this evening you're telling Kenyans that the bereaved families will have to wait longer until the law is developed. And I'm not actually asking for specific families. These are public resources for purposes of accountability. once again, how much was spent to settle the burial expenses?
I wouldn't know, because it's not, you know, there's no vote called burial expenses. There's no vote like that. So this is ex gratia support, not just for these cases, many other cases every day that the state deals with are done ex gratia within the security operations budget, and therefore it's not possible to pinpoint. This amount was used for burial because of the lack of a specific vote line.
On the time frame for compensation?
What about?
What time can they wait? For how long can the law be developed?
I am not sure, but we will do our best to make sure that cases where we form consensus, national consensus that require compensation are onboarded, because even in the extreme and glaring cases of terrorism, I've told you, it has taken, I think now, quite a number of years since we enacted the Prevention of Terrorism Act to operationalize that section. So I'm hoping perhaps within the year, within the coming year, we can work with the new leadership in that ministry and other stakeholders in the normal way government works and process perhaps regulations of the operationalization of some of these issues. As to whether that can be expanded beyond terrorism-related incidents, that is a discussion again which we can open up to stakeholder input and have it dealt with.
It's clear, Mr. Deputy President, that the tag behind you, and you know, my colleague Mashima Kapombe mentioned it when we mentioned that we were having this interview, is not a very rosy one. And one person in particular called you the butcher of Tharaka. I have two important questions I'd like to understand, because President William Ruto addressed the nation on the night of June 25th when protesters breached Parliament. He told the nation that that was a treasonous act perpetrated by crooks and criminals. Do you believe that the young people killed by police during the protest were crooks and criminals and not young people trying to advocate for their rights?
The protests of June started as legitimate protests by peaceful Kenyans who were expressing their rights and opinions on certain issues that they felt that needed to be handled by government differently. In the course of those protests, criminal elements infiltrated those protests, and it became very difficult. On the one hand, you have protesters whose interest is just expressing themselves within the Constitution, but within their midst, there are people killing people, hurting people, looting property, and that's how Parliament was breached, because protesting does not include breaching in Parliament, which is a restricted access facility. And that day, we came very short of the burning down of Parliament. And in the process, the chambers of the Chief Justice were also vandalized by protesters, broke the wall, broke windows and doors, and stole water and other items. So the point is, how do we balance going forward? They need to protect the right to protest, but at the same time ensure public safety. Other countries have had their occasions, like the Americans had on 6th January 2020. Similar situation. People are unhappy with an election outcome, and they just venture into constitutional institutions and run amok and bring violence. So it is unfortunate we had that mix-up between honest, legitimate protesters and cruel and dangerous criminals who really caused a lot of pain, death, destruction, and almost put down some of our institutions established under the Constitution.
There's been many questions over who gave the shoot-to-kill order? Was there a shoot-to-kill order? And was it a show of culpability for security agencies under your command that warranted the presence of the military, the Kenya Defense Forces, to quell the situation?
There was no shoot-to-kill order. And the Interior Minister does not command the operations of the police. This is spelled out in Article 245 of the Constitution in very clear terms.
If there was... Your Excellency, I want to put this question to you, and it's a question of responsibility. When you're being vetted for the second time as the Cabinet Secretary Interior, there was a lot of praise heaped on you for combating banditry in the north of Kenya. And you appeared to acknowledge that. Was the police in the North Rift under different command, so much so that when it comes to the Gen Z protests, you're not the one in charge, but when it comes to the North Rift, you will take the glory?
At no time have I said I've been in charge of the operations on banditry, because the Minister for Interior does not play that role. Have I provided it policy leadership to deal with banditry in the last 2 years? The answer is yes, in a very consequential manner, with great humility, because other than advising on the establishment of the Operation Maliza Uhalifu and the gazettement of the disturbed areas. You know, that's the job now of the minister. Those are policy interventions. But I was able to push through in a very difficult financial situation prevailing then in the country, an injection of a significant amount of resources to acquire equipment to assist the police in their operations, which has been the missing link for many years. MRAPs, that is the mine resistance ambush protected vehicles, armored personnel carriers, drones, that is the aerial vehicles, unmanned aerial vehicles, and so many other, including personal protection items. So, in a very modest way, I would want to be associated with the tremendous work done by the police, with the support of the military, to dismantle the infrastructure of banditry in the North Rift, because I provided policy support for the acquisition of modern weapons and also providing the legal space for the police to carry out operations, especially in the areas which I classified as disturbed and dangerous, because that is where criminals were always retreating and regrouping. Those areas today are completely free from bandits.
The question here, Your Excellency, is on the question of responsibility. Local NGOs, the United Nations, the US government, the foreign missions have admonished the government of the Republic of Kenya of its human rights record, and particularly the handling of a Gen Z protests. My question to you tonight is, when the Republic of Kenya is being admonished, who takes responsibility?
Well, as I have said, you see the general admonition or viewpoints by various stakeholders on the performance of government on many things, including homeland security, is a legitimate thing. But the question of responsibility arises when one believes that there is something they have done wrong. It doesn't arise when someone's conscience is crystal clear. They have not done anything wrong. From where I sit, the nearly 700 days I served as Kenya's Interior Minister, one, I can account for each of those days what I did for this country, sometimes under great distress and risk, which I knew I'm exposing myself, but because of duty, I had to do it. Some of the places I did, my predecessors never ventured into them. I spent nights in police barracks and military barracks with frontline soldiers, not to command them, but to give them moral support, including on Christmas Day, including on Easter, places like Lamu, where terror attacks were the order of the day, to give them support that the government has not sent these officers there to die. They have sent them there to protect the nation. And as minister, my moral support and the policy guidance I gave, I think, was instrumental in a big way because of the feedback I have received from the officers. So to answer your question, therefore, I am not saying that our Homeland Security system is perfect. It is work in progress. But responsibility is individual. It's not collective.
I must remind you, Prof, and the viewers, that there's a lot of rain here, so we'll have to speak a bit louder so that we can be heard. But as you speak about policy guidelines and taking modest credit for what was done in the North Rift on banditry, are you trying to tell us that you could not give policy guidelines on how police protests or moral support in them ensuring that they adhere to human rights?
We did.
So what happened? What went wrong?
What went wrong is what goes wrong when maybe, the operations, security operations are intense and emotive operations. It's not somewhere where an officer will be told, when you reach there, do this, do the other. So what we have are general policy guidelines. For example, the use of labor force is reserved when to apply when the life of the officer is at risk.
So was any officer's life in danger? Allow me, Professor Kindiki, was any police officer in danger when David Shege and Enoch Chalo, Erickson Chalo Mutisia only had a flag and they were dancing outside Parliament? What threat did they pose to security officers at Parliament?
That is a matter under investigations. If the circumstances you're reading out there is what happened, the officers will be accountable. It's as simple as that.
And how long will that take?
As soon as IPOA completes the investigations and forwards the DPP. Criminal investigations are complex. They involve scientific assembling of evidence. It is not enough to rush suspects to court only for cases to collapse. And it is not uniquely a Kenyan issue. Criminal investigations, especially in a complex endeavor like the situation we're referring them to, take a bit of time, and therefore I'm hopeful that...
Why were the police in mask? How complex was that? That we
again,
who was ensuring security is not breached?
You're just telling me what you think or saw.
But it was
which is part of evidence.
It was on live TV. There are photos of police officers who are masked.
I
can't identify them.
I'm not disputing.
But
just telling you,
CS Interior,
that is part of the evidence that is required to hold into account any person who may have been involved in that unfortunate incident you're explaining.
Your Excellency, if you were to move this forward and probably look at why the public is on you, this is what you said on the 12th anniversary of the Supreme Court about a month ago. And you were talking about crucial jurisprudence. You said, I have had to ask myself whether the highest interest is the public interest or there is a higher interest called the national interest, because the public itself could hurt the national interest. Public can be mobilized or mobilize themselves against national interest. First of all, where does this national interest sit in the Constitution? And number two, wasn't this an indirect proposal of a clawback on basic freedoms that are enshrined in the Constitution, Your Excellency?
As you answer this, Your Excellency, you did say that lives of protesters need to be protected as you ensure public safety. Was the public unsafe during that period? Why did we get to that point?
When I spoke at the Supreme Court reflection colloquium, on public interest and national interest. Some erroneously thought I was talking about government interest or even security interest. That's not the case. In fact, after that colloquium, I've had further reflection, because by the grace of God, I'm also a scholar. So I reflect on some of these things, and I have come to the conclusion that within our constitutional framework, we can categorize 3 forms of interest that could be expressed by members of the public, rather than 2, 3. One is popular interest. And the question I'm asking myself as a scholar and a student of constitutional law is whether what is popular is in the public interest all the time. I am not sure. I am not sure that what is popular is in the public interest. I don't believe. Sometimes yes, maybe not all the times. But at the Supreme Court colloquium, I also asked, is there a hierarchy of norms in our Constitution such that we have public interest and national interest? And for clarity and avoidance of doubt, national interest is not government interest, and it's not the interest of, it's not security. What I had in mind is, you're aware, our Constitution allows the people of Kenya to express themselves in exercise of their sovereignty in 2 ways. 1, through elections. 2, through referenda. And then I asked myself, in fact it was tailored to the judiciary, and I wanted to ask myself, if the people of Kenya, for example, agree and express themselves in exercise of their sovereignty to change the Constitution in a referendum and vote to remove the judicial arm of government, and they decide we don't need the judiciary. People are sovereign. In a referendum, they can actually remove the judiciary. And then I asked myself, since this is an outcome of a referendum, this is in the public interest. But is it in the national interest that really you can have a modern country, a democratic country without a judicial arm of government?
But these are 2 different scenarios, DP, because this was about taxes that Kenyans felt were unfair, and their leaders
at the
were
Supreme
not
Court,
listening to
I
them.
was not talking about the protest at all. You can look at my statements. I was not talking about protest.
So what do you...
We were reflecting on what the Supreme Court has helped us to understand about our Constitution, and I was inviting the Supreme Court judges to start thinking whether, even as we express our sovereignty, we have what we call bedrock things that we cannot touch. I'll give you another example. If the people of Kenya meet and in a referendum, they overwhelmingly vote, so it is popular, it is in public interest, and they vote to change Article 4.2 of the Constitution that says that Kenya is a democratic multi-party state and create a monarchy or another form of government that is not democracy. It is in the public interest. It is popular. It's in the popular interest. But is it in the national interest? My answer is that it is not. So within the Constitution, there are things you can change and still not change the DNA of our Constitution. There are others, once you touch them, the DNA of Kenya as we know it changes forever. That's what I was discussing.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that, Your Excellency, because during your vetting, following your reappointment as Interior Cabinet Secretary, you are on record saying that you will specify designated protest areas, potentially undermining the right to peaceful assembly outlined in Article 37 of the Constitution. How would you justify limiting spaces where Kenyans can express their grievances at a time when the government is facing mounting criticism, and why?
That is the practice in all democracies. Show me one democracy where people are free to express themselves anywhere, anyhow, anytime, notwithstanding the rights of other people, including traffic, the right for traffic to flow, and so forth. I have been, before I became minister, I was an academic. And for about 12 years, I traveled to about 100 countries around the world. So I'm very familiar with many democracies. Many of them, including the Hague, where I spent almost 7 years in the International Criminal Court trials. They designate places where you go and express yourself. Every institution actually is mandated. If it's parliament, they designate a place, and then the police gives some routine. They say between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., a certain group will protest. And they tell the police will be about 500 and so forth. And then you protest there, you hand your petition, someone comes and receives petitions, then you vacate. Maybe in the evening another group will come. That's what we might start thinking about. But as long as we think that expression of rights means you venture and frustrate everybody else who is not part of your protest, then we are courting anarchy, and that's not part of democracy.
Peaceful protest, because even if we go to Chacha, even when you saw the protests regarding the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, they were just roughed off by police. One even wonders, because we even have had leaders who have expressed a fear and concern that actually it's not even Kenyan police. So who are these that appear when Kenyans exercise the democratic freedom of picketing?
The example you have given was regrettable, and government has already addressed itself to that issue. The Principal Secretary for State Department for Internal Security did
Don't you think the precedences are too many?
Not really, I don't think so. And I think with the apology that the State Department gave, I think Kenyans should give government the benefit of doubt. Mm-hmm. Because if the intention was to keep on doing this thing, then an apology was unnecessary. If you know you're going to do it again, you just keep quiet and do it the following day.
Did you realize this only when you became the interior boss? And despite having served in various capacities in the leadership of the Senate, you didn't think of introducing that bill then?
In 2015, I introduced the Homeland Security Bill, which, as leader of majority in the Senate, which was taken up and became part of it is what became the miscellaneous security laws of 2014. I know some parts of that law were struck out, but 85% of those laws are what has made Kenya.
Specifically on limiting the protesters?
The security laws did not cover the issue of protest. But it covered a wide range of issues that we needed to deal with to make sure that our country is safe. But on the other hand, legislation is work in progress. It doesn't end with one piece of legislation. It happens every day. Democracies which have been in place for 300 years are still making law, even security-related laws. So I did my bit in certain aspects, as in the example I've given you, but it is not true that when somebody serves as a member of parliament or senate, everything that needs to be legislated will be done during that time.
DP, as we wrap this topic up, there's one question that many Kenyans would like to know. In a Citizen TV interview after the protests, you said that infiltrators were linked to elements within government and opposition. And you said we have evidence leading to political operatives from across the political divide. We will prosecute. How far are we with that? How many of those planners or operatives?
The last time I checked, I've been following up after that, and you know that's not too long ago. That was July. After that, as you're aware, the cabinet was dissolved, the entire cabinet. For that period around August, there was no cabinet. July, August, and then September, the vetting. So by the time I went back to the ministry, it was sometimes, I think, almost October, I can't remember the date. And we are following up on that process. As much as I know, a number of people have already recorded statements, and as far as I know, a file was forwarded by the DCI to the DPP, but it was returned to seal certain gaps that have been discovered by the DPP, and therefore that is work in progress. As I said, criminal investigations take long, but I'm sure there will be accountability for everyone who may have either incited violence or taken advantage of the peaceful protest to infiltrate that democratic process.
But you said you have evidence. Why should it take long? Or is it only a preserve of the political class?
That evidence, I have just told you that it was presented to the DPP, and the DPP said it was not enough to convict. You can have evidence which is not enough to convict. I could believe, okay, that the evidence is enough, but the DPP, who has the final say in qualitative and quantitative evidence, is the one who has the police to do more work if we have to sustain prosecution.
So the police didn't do a very good job, that's what you're saying, in the investigation?
This is routine, it happens every day, not just in Kenya, all over the world. The police do their work, and that's why there's that two-tier mechanism. So the DPP looks at it and said, no, we need to fill this using the elements of crime. You need the evidence of this. So we cannot say the police didn't do a good job. It happens every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'd like to move to the next topic, which is your ascension to power as the Deputy President and the politics around it. And this session will be led by Ashrim Mazuri.
All right, Your Excellency, did you play a role in Rigathi Gachagwa's ouster?
No.
Then are you proud of the process, the impeachment process that many said were flawed that led to your ascension to power as the Deputy President?
That process you are referring to, I think, involved three arms of government: the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. To that extent, to the extent that constitutional institutions were involved and are still involved, I see no problem with that process, and if there is a problem, there is a way of remedying that problem.
What about the right to fair hearing that he did not get?
That is the matter before court, unless you want me to discuss the merits of the matter before court.
So then what's your relationship between you and the ousted, impeached Deputy President?
As it was before.
Are you friends or not?
We are good people, we're good friends. I have no reason to complain in the past, present, and even in the future.
Was there a handover?
Yes.
An official handover?
Was there an official handover?
There wasn't an official handover because the former Deputy President is in court. You wouldn't expect him to hand over if he's in court.
Your Excellency, which IEBC cleared you? Did you take your papers there? How were you cleared by the IEBC?
There's no requirement to clear a Deputy President who ascends to office by virtue of Article 145 read together with 150.
But the
what requires the clearance of IBC is the President and the Deputy President in an election.
The President's memo to Parliament, Your Excellency, indicated that the nomination was cleared by IEBC.
There was no election. I assumed office through a process different from a process following an election.
Is it an indictment of the judiciary, Your Excellency? Because the former Deputy President, through a court process, is actually outside. We have the governor of Meru, who is in office, even through a similar process. What kind of jurisprudence is that creates two forms of justice in your own understanding? And this is from a point of view as a law professor.
First, the two cases you have cited were beneficiaries of court injunctions. The only difference is in one, after the inter partes hearing of the matter around whether or not the injunction should be preserved. In one case, the court found that the injunction needed to be lifted. In the second case, which also there has been an injunction, the court found yesterday that there is no need to lift the injunction. That's the only difference. And it happens in courts all the time, not just in Kenya, all over the world. In fact, the finding of one court is in many cases overturned by the next court the following day. So there is no inconsistency whatsoever. That is judicial practice. A judge, even one bench of 3 judges, one judge will say this, 2 other judges will say different things, on the same subject matter, same articles, same evidence, same parties. That's how, that's the independence of the judiciary is not just institutional. It is individual, it's decisional. Every judge carries decisional independence.
Your predecessor, Your Excellency, says the reason you ascended to this position is because you are a yes man. You cannot mount any challenge whatsoever to the president. I'm putting this question to you tonight. Are you your own man? Are you a yes man?
I am my own man. On the second issue, I would like to respond as follows. My understanding of the role of the deputy president is not to challenge the president. It is not in the Constitution. It is not in any law. It is not in any practice. That is not the job description of the deputy president. As to whether the deputy president can advise the president, the answer is yes. The oath of office I took has a clause that asks me to faithfully advise the president when my advice is sought.
So then where does your allegiance lie? To the people or your appointing authority?
My allegiance lies on the oath of office I took. You look at the oath of office, it will tell you where my allegiance is.
And are you proud of the
people of Kenya, to the nation and the national interest? And when my counsel is sought by the president, I must give it faithfully. And faithfully doesn't mean that I do it on the podium.
Does it?
But it means I have to be faithful, and faithfully means it could be different from what the president thinks.
DP, are you proud of the manner in which you became deputy president? In 2022, you were a front runner to be running mate to Dr. William Ruto, but you did not get that position. And you actually said you were going to take a break from politics. Are you now proud that 2 years down the line, you are the one who has taken that position after the impeachment on the person who was picked over you?
I have no regrets for my occupying this space because I have no reason to regret. It is true I was a front runner to be deputy president in 2022 through a process that was conducted by my party. I was not successful. My brother, Rigathi Gachagua, was successful. I congratulated him, and I said 2 things. One, that I will support the campaign, the presidential campaign, until 8th or 9th of August 2022. And after that, I will take a break from elective and appointive positions.
But you still took the CS
Just a moment.
position.
Just a moment. After I made those 2 very important decisions, which I made after soul searching and consulting everyone who needed to be consulted, my party and its leadership met and persuaded me as a member of the party, because I didn't say I'll leave the party. I'll say that I'll campaign for President Ruto and his deputy, but after that, I'll not be running for any office. I'll take a break for 10 years. And therefore, the party met and persuaded me to change my mind and accept an appointive position as Minister for Interior, which I accepted. That's all.
Are you the kingpin of the Mount Kenya region?
Which office is that?
Of course, you are
endorsed by a section of members from majorly the East, where you hail from. You never dismissed that.
Which office is that?
Your Excellency, other than the kingpin issue, there are a majority of members of parliament who met in Nanyuki from the Mount Kenya region, that is before you ascended to the office of deputy president, and endorsed yourself as their link in government.
To the executive.
You have ascended to that office now. Are you now, have you ceased being their link?
Maybe you should ask them. Because I think the members of parliament, because I didn't say it, they said it. So maybe they can say it again if they wish, but to the best of my recollection, those members of parliament had expressed frustrations in getting their constituency development agenda through to government because of the breakdown of relationship they had with the former occupier of this office. And therefore, they asked me whether I could convey their needs to the president. And because I was a member of the cabinet, I saw no problem with that. But whether or not they would continue asking me to convey their messages, it's up to them to decide.
Your Excellency, from that region. Sir, you come from that region, the Mount Kenya region. Tharaka Nithi, where you come from, is nestled in Mount Kenya region. I want to know, because Kenya Kwanza had promises it made towards the people of that region. So who will be pushing for the implementation of these promises?
That region, like other regions in Kenya, has very many elected leaders. The office I occupy now as Deputy President is an office of the Republic. Unlike other leaders, for example, who have a subnational mandate. And therefore, the way I see it is that the people from the region you're referring to, which happens to be where I was born and raised, have a right, just like the people from the coast, Western, Nyanza, Rift Valley, Northeastern. They have a right to use this office, because it's a national office, to channel their needs, interest to the government. So I see no contradiction, I see no change of position, and the only thing I don't understand is this thing about the kingpin or something. I don't understand it because there is no office like that.
Well, and are you still hopeful, and do you think there is a possibility of you becoming William Ruto's running mate come 2027?
How would I know?
Your Excellency, then you've talked about development and, you know, those members of parliament using this office to lobby for development. Shouldn't then the development be a democratic right so that then there is no need to lobby and to push for it?
That's not true. The reason you have subnational representation of political leaders, members of the National Assembly, members of the Senate, their mandate is subnational. A member of the National Assembly represents the interests, priorities of the constituency where they are elected. Of course, in the context of a broader national perspective, because some of the things that they want them passed are not projects and programs, they are legislative in nature, and you require the parliament as a whole to support you. For example, recently we had a Sugar Act sponsored by a member of parliament from Western Kenya, where sugar is mostly grown. But it required the votes of the member for the members from Northeastern Coast, where there's no sugar, and Central, to pass it. So the point is this: it is not true to say that a member of parliament does not need to articulate the interest of their people, because they are elected purposely for that. They are elected to articulate those interests and convey them either to the executive, to the legislature, and make sure that those interests at that local level are realized.
During your inauguration, when you took oath of office, your boss, the President, Dr. Ruto, said he felt he was a lone voice in the executive. From your interaction, 50 days in, is he still a lone voice? And perhaps you interact with him, he's your boss.
I really don't know.
Do you think you're fulfilling?
Do
you think you're
how
fulfilling
he's
that?
feeling?
Yes.
Because again, that's not in my place. I wouldn't know how he's feeling at the moment. All I can say is that I'm doing my best to do my constitutional duty. That constitutional duty is being principal assistant to the president and also helping him in the delegated assignments that he has given me, and I'm doing my best. How he's feeling now, I cannot be, it's not in my place to tell you how happy he is or
Do you think he's confident of what you're doing? Is he happy with what with your work?
I have no reason to doubt that he's confident.
You've been deputy president for only 50 days now. What would you say is the qualitative difference between you and the former deputy president, given that the operating environment hasn't changed?
It would be very improper for me to start comparing myself with my brother, the second deputy president.
The president has spoken very highly of your leadership and your contributions, as my colleague George Maringa here says. If the president feels that he has accomplished his key goals and decides not to run for re-election, would you consider running yourself? Do you believe that you have what it takes to run the country?
That question is an unfair question. Am I allowed to complain?
Why is that?
It is an unfair question because I have just been entrusted with a very serious and grave national responsibility. What is weighing in my mind now and what is really, really occupying me is the desire to discharge those obligations because the expectations of the people of Kenya, the expectations of the president are so high. If I started occupying myself with ideas of what will happen, I don't know when, I'll be the most unsuitable person to be seated before you today.
Your Excellency, I want to rephrase Michelle's question regarding you and the former deputy president. Let's not even go with the qualitative differences. But clearly there are lessons you must have learned from Gachagwa's tenure in office. What lessons are those?
You know, my friend, you know, in leadership is defined by certain ethos and parameters. And I want to persuade you to allow me not to discuss my brother, the Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, because he's my friend. And you've not heard me bad-mouthing him anywhere before when he was in this office or even after he left office. So please spare me because it is not right. It is wrong to start comparing myself with the predecessor or someone who occupied this office now or in the past or a person who would occupy it in the future.
Are you being cautious, Your Excellency? The region you come from is very restive. And it's quite a significant, it has quite a significant portion in terms of votes. Are you being cautious now when I ask you the question of lessons you've learned? Are you being cautious not to antagonize the former deputy president?
I have no reason to antagonize anybody. For what?
Your Excellency.
Your Excellency, perhaps just to buttress on what John Kiore said, when it comes to lessons learned, many have said that the seat that you occupy now, the deputy presidency, has some sort of curse. They've called it the curse of the deputy presidency. And every individual who's held this seat has had some sort of, falling into political oblivion. Do you believe that you have the magic wand to change this so-called curse of the deputy?
I don't believe any seat is cursed. Let's start from there. Secondly, I don't think it is a priority to start thinking whether I will survive in this seat or not. As I have said, what is weighing in my mind, the same way when I became Interior Minister, and the North Rift was in that shape, Lamu, Boni was in that shape, and Northern Kenya was that shape. I told myself, including the passport crisis, I said, if I will last here for 1 year, I want to try my best and have these challenges under control. So for me, I cannot start now entertaining myself on what will happen to me, whether I'll succeed here or there. That's not for me to determine. It's beyond me. What is within my reach, what is within my control, is the focus to deliver on the job. As to whether I survive or what happens, that is not within my reach, and I cannot control what I cannot control.
VP, we need to move forward to the next topic, but I would like to end this with this question. The mountain which you seem to be avoiding is hostile ground right now, and not just the mountain. The government is struggling with its popularity. As the president's principal assistant, how are you working to change that perception of Kenyans? And more so those who are...
Did you say that the mountain is restive?
Yes. The reception in Embu, for example.
Yes.
In Nyandarua the other day, residents refused to listen to the president's speech. In Nakuru County, at a burial, again, they did not want to listen to the president's
That is democracy. That's how democracy works.
Is that hostile ground to the government that you serve as deputy president now?
You see, there is a difference between running governments and being popular. Those are two different things. And for me, a leader should be least worried about popularity. The worry of a leader should be their pace and focus on transforming the lives of the people.
And do you think the lives of the people have been transformed?
Leader is not necessarily one who is popular all the time. However, a good leader knows when to be popular.
Don't you think that popularity has gone down because Kenyans' lives
I really don't think so, because at the moment, President Ruto and his administration now in the midterm is not in their priority to look for popularity. There is no election taking place. The task of the government now at midterm is to track the pace of delivery, where there are gaps, seal those gaps, and just deliver on the commitments. The time will come when there will be popularity contests. And let me tell you, for avoidance of doubts, that is not President Ruto's worry. I also don't think that should be the worry of this administration. If we start worrying about popularity now, we'll lose it, time will elapse. We could even win the election next time, but we will not have delivered as we ought to deliver.
Your Excellency, and that transformation that you're talking about, Ashley, allow me, is what brings us into the next topic, which is about the economy, and Joel Chacha is going to lead that session.
Well, the government of the day boasts of a 2.8% inflation rate, which is a 17-year low. But the question here is on the shrinking disposable income, that is through what many may consider overtaxation. And the purchasing power, hence, is low. How are you working to ensure that there is money in the pockets of Kenyans?
Thank you. When President Ruto took over leadership of this country in 2022, the 5 or 6 macroeconomic indicators were not looking good. And I need to clarify now that I have this opportunity. Many people think when we project that time frame, so that to show the distance we have covered, we are casting aspersions at the previous administration. That is not true. Kenya got to where it was in 2022 because of factors mainly beyond the control of President Uhuru Kenyatta, because the country's economy was shut down for nearly 2 years by COVID-19. No economic activity. And then, of course, the war in Ukraine, which affected the global supply chain of wheat and other oil and foodstuffs, and many other factors. So when we refer to 2022, it is not political. It's just a fact. And in any case, that's the only way we can explain what we have done. Now, straight to your issue. The macroeconomic indicators were bad. The dollar was rising on a daily basis, 160. At one point, it approached 170. The price of fuel, the same. At one point, it approached 217 per liter for petrol, super. Then inflation was 9.6%. And then if you take the 6 basic food items, starting with unga, the main ones, again, the prices were much higher than they are today. Today, essential commodities, 2 years later, are down significantly. Just to give unga as an example, from 240, 250, 230, depending on the brand, to now something between 95 and 120, depending on the brand, maybe 120 something. Number two, the foreign exchange stability has been realized for more than a year now, from the high of 160 plus to now 127, 129 for some time. The same applies to the price of fuel, which is decreasing every day, every month, including last month when it went down by 4 shillings. Inflation again from 9.6 to 2.8%, the lowest in 17 months. Now, in 17 years. Now, that has not happened by magic or by chance. It has happened because of policy interventions, subsidizing production as opposed to consumption, the fertilizer subsidy, and so many other interventions in various sectors that has managed the macroeconomic situation. It has taken 2 years. But flashback to 2002 when President Kibaki took over, when we had similar situations at the exit of President Moi. It took President Kibaki 6 years to bring back macroeconomic stability. President Ruto has taken 2 years, by the grace of God. So the 2 years look a bit long, but in the context of what has happened in the past, I think this is a bit of a very good trial. What remains now is what you're asking me. The macroeconomic stability, for it to be felt by citizens, must be followed by microeconomic stability, which is improving household incomes, creating jobs, and so many other things that we are doing in the space of SMEs, in the space of the various sectors, including manufacturing and tourism. So, to answer your question, the macroeconomic transformation and the microeconomic transformation cannot be taken simultaneously. One must precede the other. Going forward, therefore, the remaining 3 years is the interventions. We're going to have interventions that will respond to the issues you say. Already those interventions have been operationalized. They are on course, creating jobs through the 3 major prongs, creating jobs at home, creating jobs online, creating jobs even overseas, and then also other interventions that will enable disposable incomes in the pockets of individual citizens.
But going forward, that really it can only be achieved when the whole problem begins with our budgeting. For instance, despite the challenges faced in the fiscal year 2024-2025, your projections in the next fiscal year for 2025-2026 you're looking at having a budget of 4.25 trillion Kenya shillings, with the revenue, ordinary revenue, actually crossing the 3 trillion mark. That basically will translate either to more debt, because already we will record a 759 billion fiscal deficit, but at the same time, we are forced to actually impose now the taxation on Kenyans, because last year we only got 2.1 trillion in terms of ordinary revenue. So why this shift over ambition on ordinary revenue collections?
Again, in 2022, the fiscal deficit was more than 8.2% or thereabout. And that means the gap between revenue and expenditure. It was at 8.2%. This administration in 2 successive budgets has reduced it. Currently is at 4.3.
On paper, because of revenue shortfalls. That shifts towards the end of the fiscal year.
Yes.
And you are forced to bring a supplementary budget.
We are forced, but in all fairness, where the fiscal deficit is now is not where it was in 2022. And in fact, I am confident the Treasury will bring it further down this year. But more fundamentally, it is not in our priority of things to generate more revenue through perhaps more taxation, to answer you directly. What we are doing is that we are reviewing tax policy, because that's where you can still get more revenue, not by imposing new taxes or higher taxes, but by adjusting certain tax policy instruments that gives you more revenue. You heard the Minister for Finance and the National Treasury the other day explaining how the Treasury is entertaining a possibility. Of course, it has to go through public participation of even relooking at VAT, what the VAT should be like, maybe try to bring it down, and other taxes, as one of the 5 pillars this administration is putting in place to ensure that tax is a bit more accommodating, more people are bearing the burden of tax without necessarily compromising revenue. Number 2, Kenya's debt right now is in a better place than it was in 2022.
11.3 trillion is better?
It is better in the sense that, debt is calculated in 2 ways. First, as an absolute figure, which is what you're citing, but also as a percentage to GDP. And in other words, many countries...
At what percentage is it? Already at distress, 68%.
You call it distress, it's not. If it was, the IMF would have said so. And I'm sure the IMF has not said so.
Yeah, Your Excellency.
They are just warned us that we need to make sure that it doesn't enter into the red zone.
But 55% plus or minus 5 is what is allowed by our law.
The point is, it's not even about percentage also alone. Many countries, including developed countries, are highly indebted. The US, for example, the US debt is about almost 120% of GDP. Japan is 250% of GDP. 248, 250. So and many other countries. Singapore's debt also is in the hundreds. However, what we need to do, let's agree that what remains ahead is that our revenue generation measures must not lead to higher taxes. It's not a must. Number 2 is that the area of debt, we need to be careful so that Kenya does not enter into the unsustainability zone, and we are managing that.
DP, naomba kidogo, wakati ambapo tunazungumzia masuala ya uchumi, kuna wengi ambao wanahisi kwamba mnasema maneno mengi, maneno makubwa makubwa, lakini la msingi ni kwamba biashara nyingi ziko katika mazingira magumu. Wengi wamefunga biashara zao, wengi wamelalamika kwamba hawawezi kuendeleza biashara zao kutokana na zile sheria ambazo zilizoko na zile sera ambazo zinatolewa na serikali. Labda unaweza kuwaeleza wale wanaokutazama leo hii ambao wameshindwa kuendelea na biashara zao, ni mikakati gani kama serikali mnaweka ili kuhakikisha kwamba hizi biashara zinaweza kuinuka na wanaweza kupata pesa mfukoni?
Asante sana. Ni kweli biashara nyingi zinapitia changamoto nyingi, na ni kweli wananchi wakiwemo wanabiashara wamelalamika na pia wametoa mapendekezo ya sheria ama sera ambazo wangetaka tuziangalie upya. Najua ya kwamba hivi sasa Wizara ya Uwekezaji na masuala ya industry ama viwanda inaongea na KEBSA. KEBSA ni ile Private Sector Alliance ama kikundi cha wanabiashara katika sekta ya binafsi. Wanajadiliana kuhusu mambo mawili, na jana wamekuja hapa kunipatia mahali wamefika katika majadiliano. Ni leseni gani ambazo tunapaswa kuziangalia upya, na vile masuala ya ile levies ambazo zinatolewa na mashirika mbalimbali. Kwa hivyo swala hili la ugumu wa wanabiashara wetu ni swala ambalo tunaliangazia, tunajadiliana na wale ambao ni washikadau, na serikali iko tayari kutoa mwelekeo ama sera mpya za kuzingatia uboreshaji wa biashara. Ile jambo ambalo nimesema,
manake watu wanakwenda Krismasi hawana hela mfukoni, watakula nini sikukuu?
Unajua hayo majadiliano sio ya Krismasi, ni ya kurekebisha.
Januari kutakuwa na hela za karo zinazohitajika.
Pia hiyo mjadala sio wa maneno ya karo, ni wa kurekebisha idara zetu na ili biashara zetu zipanuke. Nataka niwahakikishie kwamba nimesema jana waziri wa viwanda na uwekezaji pamoja na wakilishi wa shirika hilo ambalo ni la wanabiashara wameniambia wako katika mjadala, na Januari nimeambia hao waniletee ile ripoti yao ili tuipitishe ama tuijadilie katika baraza la mawaziri. Kwa hivyo mwakani tutakuwa na mfumo mpya, sera mpya, sheria mpya za kuboresha biashara.
Lakini pia kuna wale ambao wanasema, nikimalizia, kuna wale ambao wanahisi kwamba hizi biashara kuna mazingira magumu kwa sababu wale ambao wanapata mshahara, kwa mfano, zile pesa ambazo wao hutumia kwenda kwa hoteli, kwa mfano, kwenda kununua chakula, zimepungua kutokana na yale makato ya mishahara. Kwa hivyo wengi wanashikilia zile hela kidogo walizobakishwa nazo, ndio maana hizi biashara hazisongi mbele. Unasemaje kuhusiana na hili?
Unajua, nimesema ya kwamba Wizara ya Hazina ya Kitaifa imesema ya kwamba iko na mambo manne ambayo inataka kushughulikia ili kujaribu kusawazisha maneno ya kiuchumi na kuhakikisha wananchi wamepata nafuu ya kiuchumi katika household, yani katika individual level, sababu tumekuwa tukikabiliana na mambo ya kijumla. Sasa tunakabiliana na mambo ya kibinafsi, na kati ya hayo majadiliano kutakuwa na sera mpya za mambo ya ushuru na mambo ya kibiashara. Lakini la muhimu zaidi ni kwamba katika hayo majadiliano ni lazima tujue ya kwamba ile ushuru ambao unakatwa, kwa mfano katika mambo ya bima ya afya, unaweza kuwa unapunguza kidogo mshahara wako kama mtu ambaye ameajiriwa kazi, lakini ile bima ambayo ni ya kila mwananchi itapunguza zile arambe za kimatibabu. Kwa hivyo wewe labda pesa yako imepungua kidogo, lakini hizi arambe 5 ama 10 ulikuwa unaitwa kwa sababu uko na mtu kwa familia ako na shida ya figo, shida ya moyo, hizo harambee zikipungua, there is a net off. Kuna vile hiyo mkato imekunufaisha hata kwa njia zaidi kuliko vile ilikuwa, because
swala la naibu rais, lakini unapozungumzia masuala yote licha ufanisi huu wote, we've seen the President Dr. Ruto say we are proud that our sister country of Tanzania is now leading in our business engagements. The success of Tanzania is the success of East Africa. Businesses have been closing shop and going to neighboring countries. So you're speaking of this, and KEPSA has talked about it, that the government seems not to be listening to those who run businesses, that they're escaping to other countries.
I've just told you we are having a conversation with KEPSA. Why don't you call them after this interview?
We did speak a few weeks ago with
should have told you that they are engaging.
And he did say that, whereas that engagement is happening, it is not...
They have identified two areas. One is the regulatory. They said there is multiple regulation, or what they are calling over-regulation. The second issue on the table is on taxation. We are a bit careful because the issue of taxation, we would rather have it in the broader tax policy and other fiscal issues that are being discussed and spearheaded by the National Treasury than just to take just that business community and handle their taxation issues without the context of looking at tax as a general issue.
I really need to ask a question on the tax regime, because today there has been an announcement that there is a task force that has been formed to get to the bottom of why businesses are closing down in the Republic of Kenya and relocating to other countries. Your Excellency, doesn't that sound absurd? Why do you need a task force to establish why businesses are closing when all you can blame is the taxation regime?
You need to, because this is something that has happened for the last 20 years. It has not happened this year. Just look at which organizations have left Kenya when. The last 25 years. And that's why the contribution of our manufacturing sector to GDP has dropped from as high as 12% many years ago to 7.5%.
On the pending bills.
So it's an accumulated problem, and I think there are no quick fixes. The best way to do it is to just analyze all the factors and bring recommendations that will last us another 40, 30 years.
The financial inadequacies being experienced in the country perhaps are as a result of the pending bills. More than 650 billion for the national government, 150 billion for county governments. But you're not budgeting for it. Do you promise Kenyans that as soon as the pending bills verification committee concludes its work, you're going to settle the pending bills?
We will implement the recommendations of the pending bills verification committee.
Thank you.
DP, tumebakisha dakika kidogo kabla ya kufunga, lakini hii leo kumekuwa na mabadiliko katika baraza la mawaziri, na kuna wengi ambao wanahisi kwamba the appointments that have been made seem like a harvest just 10 days after President William Ruto met retired President Uhuru Kenyatta, and all those appointed to the cabinet and board chairs seem to be from Mount Kenya. What is this about?
You know, the cabinet, appointments, dismissal, reassignments, if you look at Article 32, is the prerogative of one person, the president. So I'm sure the changes that the president has made have been made in exercise of that prerogative and to advance our country's national life in the weeks and months to come. I cannot directly associate themselves with the political developments, but also I have no reason to disassociate themselves from any political development, because the president has made it clear that for the country to pull and rally itself to do the heavy lifting, there is need for a broader political consensus. It started with the inclusion of the partnership with some of the ministers who were appointed, who were allies of former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. The ministers and parastatal chairs who have been elected, who have been appointed today, many of them worked under President Uhuru Kenyatta. That is in the spirit of broadening political consensus so that we can focus not on political competition and the quest for political survival, but on pulling the heavy agenda that we need to pull to transform Kenya and carry everybody.
But there are those who
many Kenyans feel duped or betrayed by the Kenya Kwanza administration, because during the 2022 election campaign, the hustler narrative was the cornerstone of the Kenya Kwanza administration, a break away from traditional political dynasties to more ordinary Kenyans, right? But the appointments being made recently by President William Ruto are people or individuals from established political families. It looks like the Kenya Kwanza government is running away from the hustler narrative back to the dynasties to save the day. Why is that?
As any of the ministers and parasito chairs who have been appointed today coming from established political families.
Yeah, they do come largely from the Mount Kenya region, especially.
Sorry again? Sorry again?
They do come, many from the Mount Kenya region, many who've been in government before, and you remember the call, especially during the Gen Z protests, was to drain the swamp, to have something new in the Kenya Kwanza administration.
I don't know what you call something new, because even the ones who have come are new. They were not there, they are new.
Allow me to rephrase her question, because this is what Kenyans feel, that the political class has regrouped and forgotten about what Kenyans want. What would you tell them tonight?
I don't think so. First and foremost, as I said, this is not time for politics. Let's start from there. That time is coming. And we will all do politics and do it so well. Right now, it's time to do the very, very delicate and important work of pushing the country's development agenda. So the issue of, I don't know, who has betrayed who has regrouped with who, for me, the timing is wrong. Okay. And for Kenyans who are expressing their democratic views about some of these developments, they have their time when it is election time to express themselves on what they think about those in leadership.
Your Excellency, to Matters Now development projects, and we've seen the issue that Kenyans are actually expressing is that this government is forcefully imposing government projects, programs. For instance, vaccination of animals, SHA, that is the Social Health Authority, affordable housing, and I'll begin by that before we get to the specific programs. What do you make of, or what do you think about this? Because Kenyans say it is too soon. It is being buttressed on them. You're forcing it down their throats.
That is not true. Maybe it's a misunderstanding, because has anybody been arrested for not doing anything? What the government is doing is it is doing its obligations to the public. The government's obligation to the public is to work for the national interest. The national interest in this matter includes, for example, universal health coverage, making sure as many Kenyans as possible have medical cover, because many homes have been rendered poor. Even people who had something, they have sold everything to pay for medical bills, especially when it is chronic and critical illnesses. Okay. Many poor people live by chance. They take herbs, they go some look for witch doctors, they cannot access medical care. So we are saying, what government is saying is that it is in our interest as a country that every Kenya has an insurance, a medical insurance. It is not taking people to court for not having a medical insurance. Those are two different things. Okay, fine. The same with vaccination. What the government is saying about vaccination is that we have certain targets as a country to grow the livestock and that value chain around livestock and livestock products. For us to reach those targets, we need to access European market, the Middle East market, and even the regional market under the African Free Trade Area. And then also under economic EPAS, the partnership between Kenya and the European Union, which we signed last year. In many of these markets, our products are being denied access And one of the requirements is sanitary and phytosanitary standards. That is to say, health-related standards. One of the requirements for us, for example, to meet our export demand is that your herd must be vaccinated. And what we are rolling out is a vaccination program which has always been there for 40 years, but because there has been no campaign, high-level government campaign, we've been vaccinating about 10% of livestock. So many of our livestock are rejected when we take them out either as live animals or beef because of the vaccination question. So it is purely a disease control issue. The vaccine is developed by Kevevapi in Kabete, by Kenyan scientists. It has always been used. It is only that we are doing a campaign to make sure, other than vaccinating only 10% of livestock, we can have 80, 90, 100% vaccination for purposes of getting market access, exporting livestock and livestock products even to other countries.
DP, it's good that you, before you go to affordable housing, Ashley, because we're still on the vaccination issue, you may be explaining a very good thing for the country, but are you aware that citizens are agitated by the language of their leaders? Is there a more decent way to explain your programs and not seem like you're forcing it down their throats? And I'll give examples. Adani Consolation, the president said it is people who have never been to the airports that are complaining. When it comes to the vaccination, majority leader yesterday, I think, said ni watu hawana ng'ombe, hawana kuku. How do you think that makes citizens feel when they are trying to express themselves, yet they are met with arrogance?
And to add on to that, the Kenya Veterinary Association perhaps has, among the recommendations they've given, they've said improve public awareness, enhance stakeholder engagement. When will Kenyans feel they are participatory in this government, in these projects that affect them?
First of all, we agree that we need to create awareness and also just carry citizens along in our government programs. And also, generally, as government, we need to continue communicating to the people in a manner that is consistent with our obligations under the Constitution. But having said that, I am sure again, because we were here an hour or so ago, I'm sure you are not inviting me to comment on statements by the president or another leader, because let's discuss the issues. Let's not discuss, those kind of issues, because in the process, the message will be lost. And the message is these programs are for the interest of the nation. There is nothing sinister about it. As to if we need to improve our communication and engagement strategy, I agree with you. It is work in progress. We need to keep on improving.
There's many questions, Mr. DP, whether these questions are really for the interest of the people. We, as the media, have reported every day, Kenyans are deeply frustrated with the Social Health Authority. Many, in fact, say NHIF was working. When you come to issues like affordable housing, we were told there was public participation, despite public discontent. When it comes to livestock vaccination, the same thing. Is the government hiding behind the facade of public participation to pass unpopular programs, knowing very well that there's no legal binding framework on public participation? And so the government really isn't bound by Kenyans who say we don't want SHA.
We'll go back to what we said earlier. The government must continue listening to the people and getting input from the people. But the government also has a duty to carry out programs for the transformation of the country. Some of the programs that will transform Kenya may not be popular now, but they'll be popular sometime.
So
Singapore, for example, which many people praise, one of the factors and anchors that took Singapore where it was among other anchors is the housing anchor. And today, if you look at the Human Development Index, Singapore is up there, and one of the variables is housing, because almost 99% of everybody has a decent home. So, and it was unpopular at the time when the Singaporean leader was bringing this program. It was very unpopular. In fact, it had a component of compulsory savings. But today, many years later, after this leader left the scene, the people of Singapore are very happy that this project propelled their country into the first world. So I will end with what I started with, that what is popular may not even be in the public interest. And sometimes what is in the public interest may not be in the national interest. And the work of government is not to look for popularity. Popularity is a function of elections, which we do every 5 years. And every politician has a way of transacting with electorate to look for popularity during election. In between here, it is to engage the people, listen to the people, which we are doing. In many instances, we may not be perfect because government is a human endeavor. Like any other, we are not 100%, but we are continuing to listen. And as the President said during the State of the Nation address, listening is a full-time occupation of every leader.
Thank you very much.
And therefore, these programs may have the kind of, the consensus is not yet there, but they will transform Kenya. And many years later, when many of us who are in this space are not even here, Kenyans will come in succeeding generations will be grateful for the housing program, the universal health program, the agricultural reform program, and all the other programs that this government is rolling out for the transformation of Kenya.
Thank you very much, Deputy President, Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki, for your time. And I think Kenyans tonight will be waiting to see what will happen next in terms of how you listen, how you communicate, and how you take action after you have made promises. Asante sana. Mimi nimekuwa wako Mashirima Kapombe kutoka runinga ya Citizen.
Joel Chacha kutoka runinga ya K24.
Michelle Ngele Odhiambo, NTV.
John Jacob Kuria, KBC.
Ashley Mazuri, KTN.
George Maringa, TV47.
Usiku mwema mtazamaji.
Chacha, you finished your water.
This festive season, let the joy of togetherness fill your hearts and homes. Celebrate responsibly and make memories that last a lifetime. Choose activities that bring happiness and health. Avoid alcohol and drugs in this festive season. We're working together to ensure everyone's safety. Report illegal alcohol and drug activities in your area. This festive season, let's protect what matters most, our lives and those we love. Celebrate responsibly.
Imekuaje?
Inafika sometime inawasha hata kulala ni shida.
Sasa hii jafura hii mdomo inafika mahali inafura kabisa, sasa inateremka meno inakuwa nje yote.
It's hard.
By the way, mimi huwa najikaza tu kama mwanaume. Lakini sasa
can we for a while think of those who are suffering, think of those who need help, and come forward and contribute, just help others, because that's going to be a very special kind of thing. Because when you are helping people, you're able to enjoy.
Christmas ulikuwa unataka nikupeleke wapi?
Mimi nataka kuenda Mombasa kama wanawake wengine nikajifundishe kuogelea.
Tulisema nimempika pipi yangu.
Mimi sikusema, nimekusomea mashtaka ambayo yameandikwa hapa.
Who told you she have a manufacturer in his head?
Alinipiga mheshimiwa, nini ilifanyika na unaona
I broken his kumbafu sauku.
Anakupigaga kila siku.
Kila siku ananipiga.
Na unavumilia tu.
Na mbona ana smile na mimi basi?
Mimi anashangaa wewe anaita mimi mtoto kidogo.
Utihita kuchukulia hatua kali ile haijaonekana.
Asante mama.
Every child deserves the opportunity to thrive, and it's up to all of us to create a society where inclusion and acceptance is the norm.
We have seen that with a lot of support from the government and other institutions involved, we can be able to even make greater strides.
We want to be an exclusive publisher for digital learning content for learners with disabilities. And our focal point at the moment is learners who are deaf, learners with visual impairment.
We focus on individuals and organizations that focus on empowering children with disabilities through learning. Differently.
Imekuaje?
Inafika sometime inawasha hata kulala ni shida. Yeah.
Sasa haijafura hii mdomo. Inafika mahali inafura kabisa, sasa inateremka meno inakuwa nje yote.
It's hard.
By the way, mimi huwa najikaza tu kama mwanaume. Lakini sasa
You know, can we for a while think of those who are suffering, think of those who need help, and come forward and, you know, contribute, just help others, because that's going to be a very special kind of thing. Because when you are helping people, you are with joy.
This festive season, let the joy of togetherness fill your hearts and homes. Celebrate responsibly and make memories that last a lifetime. Choose activities that bring happiness and health. Avoid alcohol and drugs in this festive season. We're working together to ensure everyone's safety. Report illegal alcohol and drug activities in your area. This festive season, let's protect what matters most, our lives and those we love. Celebrate responsibly.
Good evening, the 19th of December 2024, a day that, well, a day of fast, so I can say, a State of the Nation address by Deputy President Kithure Kindiki, the very first since he took up that particular position. It was a combined or a joint media production, and top of the questions that were raised by that particular panel was on matters security as well as the latest government policies, including affordable housing and the transition to Taifa Care. Well, just in case you missed that, you can have a recap on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke for further details, and also our YouTube channel. And also, once again, being the 19th, we have seen changes executed in the formation of the cabinet. Details are soon to follow, but first things first, the highlights.
Mutahi Kagwe, Lee Kinyanjui and William Kabogo bounced back into the cabinet in the latest shakeup in the executive.
The Inspector General of Police has formed a specialized missing persons unit domiciled at the DCI Homicide Unit to deal with cases of femicide.
A specialized unit is formed in the Directorate of Criminal Investigation to trace persons reported missing in the country. And northeastern leaders urge residents to take advantage of the nationwide livestock vaccination drive.
Good evening once again, if you're tuning in. I'm Regina Manyara, and this is Prime Edition on KBC Channel 1. My colleague on sign language is Brian Moraru. Now we start off with the latest changes made to the cabinet, where we have the entry of Mutahi Kagwe as Cabinet Secretary, Agriculture and Livestock Development. Mutahi Kagwe. There we have Lee Kinyanjui, who takes up the mantle at the Investment, Trade and Industry docket there. William Kabogo is the new Cabinet Secretary, ICT and Digital Economy. Also, some of the changes there, we now have a former or immediate former Cabinet Secretary, Information Communication and Digital Economy, Margaret Ndongo, now has been, moved to hold the position of Ambassador of Kenya to Ghana, as well as Ababu Namwamba, who joins UNEP Nairobi. Also, other changes include Dorothy Angote now, who is proposed for the position of Ambassador in Zimbabwe, as well as Andrew Karanja, who heads now to Brazil there at the High Commission. Andrew Karanja is a former cabinet secretary there. And we also have now a major one there where we have Salim Vuria, who initially held the position of Cabinet Secretary, Trade and Investment, who moves now to Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports. We have Kipchumba Murkomen, who until this evening was holding the position as Cabinet Secretary in charge of Youth Affairs, Youth and Sports there. Is now the Cabinet Secretary, Interior and National Administration. Derito Mureithi is Chairman, KRA, proposed for the appointed to position of Chairman, Kenya Revenue Authority. We have Kembi Gitura, a seasoned politician there, getting in as the Chairman of KUTRH. While Anthony Mwaura, who was formerly at the Kenya Revenue Authority, takes up the position of Chairman at the Kenya Rural Roads Authority. Now, that's just but a sneak peek of what, or rather the latest, a detailed report is soon to follow. Just to do that recap again, is that former Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe and former Governors Lee Kinyanjui as well as William Kabogo are the latest entrants in President William Ruto's broad-based government. Also, the President nominated Mutahi Kagwe to the position of CS for Agriculture and Livestock, while Kabogo will be taking up information communication and the digital economy docket. Kinyanjui is now a CS for Investment, Trade and Industry, while Kipchumba Murkomen is now the country's Interior Cabinet Secretary. Details are going to be soon following as our reporter Giverson Minor works on that detailed report. Now, a specialized unit has been formed to help in tracing persons reported missing in the country. Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary for Interior Musalia Mudavadi says the missing persons unit will be domiciled at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. Mudavadi also said the DCI has completed investigations into 7,107 sexual and gender-based violence cases reported between September 2023 to date. Earlier on, Mudavadi launched the Peace Building Architecture Review Report, which cited negative ethnicity as the greatest driver of conflicts in the country.
The government has reaffirmed its commitment to ensuring the safety and security of all Kenyans as the year 2024 comes to an end, a year that so many people reported missing. On gender-based violence, Prime Cabinet Secretary, who is also the Acting Cabinet Secretary for Interior, Musalia Mudavadi, says among the 7,107 reported cases, 100 involve women who were murdered between August and November this year.
Nairobi County recorded the highest number of SGBV cases, while Samburu and Mandera counties had the lowest incidence.
The government is also boasting of a 62% decrease in cases of cattle rustling in the North Rift, owing to the Operation Maliza Uhalifu, with 250 suspects, including 14 politicians, arrested.
Following the resultant peace in the once volatile area, the government has completed rebuilding 11 primary schools. 5 others are under rehabilitation, while we project to rehabilitate 9 more for use during the first term of next year.
Unfortunately, 179 civilians and 4 security officers were killed in the attacks. Earlier on, Mudavadi launched the Peace Building Architecture Review Report that highlights ethnicity as the major cause of conflicts in the country. The report recommends, among others, commitment to addressing long-standing and emerging conflicts drivers and reform the national peace-building institutions. Tilio Marco for Prime Edition.
7,107 sexual gender-based violence cases recorded since September of 2023 to date. Well, we're still talking about matters of gender-based violence. Is that police have launched a manhunt for a criminal who is allegedly linked to the rape and the death and murder of a 62-year-old man in Ruiru, Kiambu County. The woman was attacked at dawn on Tuesday while walking along the Ruiru Bridge on her way from Matangi area to her place of work at a coffee firm within Ruiru town.
Police units led by Kiambu County Commander Michael Mushiri visited the scene after receiving a report from members of the public that an elderly woman was found lying on the roadside bleeding profusely before rushing her to Ruiru Prison Hospital and later transferred to Nairobi Women's Hospital, where she died while receiving treatment.
A 62-year-old was raped here some 2 days ago, and we are sad also to report that she's passed on this morning. We already picking up some very crucial information, very crucial leads. Of course, we cannot be able to talk about them at this moment, but in the fullness of time, we are going to progress this matter.
Mushiri says the victim was raped before the suspect assaulted her with a sharp object and left her bleeding out.
It's an abomination. Raping a 62-year-old grandmother, it never used to happen. So again, it's a call to the community. It's a call to religious leaders and the community at large that we need to reset and get back to our value systems so that things like this are not allowed to happen again.
Mushiri, who described the crime as horrendous, said officers from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations Homicide Unit established crucial leads that will help apprehend the suspect.
Femicide cases, gender-based violence, these are issues that the government is giving it a completely different perspective. At the Directorate of Investigation, DCI headquarters, we even have a section that is dedicated to these investigations.
Ruiru Sub-County Police Commander Alex Shikondi has appealed to the public to volunteer information that may lead to the arrest of the suspect. Kasichana Masha, Prime Edition.
Well, quite sad. Now to matters politics, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka has broken his silence on speculations making rounds of a possible coalition with former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. The self-declared opposition leader says Gachagua is welcome to join hands with the opposition leaders ahead of the 2027 election. His visit to Mount Kenya region came a day after Gachagua set foot in the Ukambani region.
Either in government or in opposition. Kwa hivyo wale tukianza Januari, tunasema wale ambao wanajiita waazimio, wale walienda kule mawaziri ni sawa, na wengine wakichaguliwa nasikia Ruto anataka kuchukua wengine, waende kibinafsi, lakini azimio itasimama. Hata kama azimio mnaona haina maana, tukianza Januari pia ni lazima tuamue, tuwe na muungano mpya.
Kuna wale wamesikia naibu wa rais wa pili Gachagua akisema ya kwamba yeye ako tayari kuungana na Kalonzo, kuungana na Wamalwa. Munakubali Gachagua aungane na sisi?
Now, leaders from northeastern counties have urged residents to actively participate in the upcoming nationwide livestock vaccination drive set to commence January next year. Speaking during the annual Al-Huda Quran competition in Manyara County, Cabinet Secretary for Environment and Climate Change, as well as Forestry, Aden Duale told pastoralists the vaccination aims to combat prevalent diseases and improve productivity.
Speaking in Manyara County, Environment Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale defended the government's plan to carry out mass vaccination of livestock, saying the program was a transformative opportunity for pastoralists.
We could not access Middle East market. We could not access European markets as pastoralists because of FMD and PPR. Mr. President, we are behind you. Come January, we will be standing. Come to Manyara, we will launch. Come to Wajir, we will launch. come to Garissa. Don't listen to the naysayers.
Duale maintained the vaccines manufactured by reputable Kenyan company Kenya Veterinary Vaccines Production Institute are critical for protecting livestock and enhancing pastoral economies.
We agreed for the first time in the history of independent Kenya. President Jomo Kenyatta never did it. President Moi never did it. President Kibaki never did it, and President Uhuru never did it. President Ruto said we are going to carry out mass vaccination of all the animals in the Republic of Kenya.
Manyara Governor Mohamed Khalif affirmed the county's commitment to the vaccination campaign and pledged to lead the effort locally. The leaders dismissed those opposed to the vaccination program, accusing them of misinforming Kenyans.
We need to seek the advice. Hii maneno ya social media, wale ambao hata hawana ng'ombe ndio wanaongea mambo ya ng'ombe, mambo ya gamia. I think it's not right. Hii program tuko na wataalamu, we have experts from this region. We need to have a meeting and then engage our people. This propaganda, people like listening to lies. And everything you do as government or as a leader, there are people who are always ready to criticize without even finding whether what they are criticizing is true or false.
The initiative aims to vaccinate approximately 22 million cattle against foot and mouth disease and 50 million sheep and goats. Yeshoke Washira, Prime Edition.
Now to the big story of today, so to speak, is that former Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe and former governors Lee Kinyanjui as well as William Kabogo are the latest entrants in President William Ruto's broad-based government. The president nominated Kagwe as the new CS for Agriculture and Livestock, Kabogo to ICT and Digital Economy docket, while Kinyanjui comes in as CS Investment, Trade and Industry. Meanwhile, Kipchumba Murkomen will be the country's next Interior Cabinet Secretary. Giverson Minor now with the details.
Former Health Cabinet Secretary who served in Uhuru Kenyatta's administration, Mutahi Kagwe, former Nakuru Governor Lee Kinyanjui, and former Kiambu Governor William Kabogo are the new faces in the cabinet following President William Ruto's reshuffle on Thursday. Mutahi Kagwe has been nominated to serve in the Agriculture and Livestock Development docket, Lee Kinyanjui in the Investment, Trade and Industry, while William Kabogo will serve in the ICT and the Digital Economy docket. The three nominees will, however, wait for approval by the National Assembly. Their nomination comes days after President Ruto met former President Uhuru Kenyatta at his Gatundu home in Kiambu County. In the cabinet changes, Kipchumba Murkomen will serve as the new Cabinet Secretary of Interior. Salim Vuria has been moved to the Ministry of Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports. Margaret Ndongwe and Andrew Karanja have been dropped as Cabinet Secretaries and nominated to serve as Kenya High Commissioners to Ghana and Brazil respectively. Former CS of Sports, Babu Namwamba, has been nominated as Kenya's permanent representative to the United Nations Environment Programme. Former Laikipia Governor Nderitu Muriithi of Jubilee Party has been appointed as the chairperson of Kenya Revenue Authority to replace Anthony Mwaura, who will now chair the Kenya Rural Roads Authority. Veteran politician Kembi Gitora is the new chairperson of Kenyatta University Teaching, Referral and Research Hospital. Giverson Minor, Prime Edition.
Well, we take a fast breather. Just remember, further details are available on our website. That is www.kbc.co.ke. Do not go away. We have so much in store for you on Prime Edition.
Listen up. Collocates is on a mission. It makes our gums happy and our teeth strong. See? We're moving forward and making changes.
It's kind of a big thing.
Colgate Herbal uses traditional nature's herbs and combines it with Colgate Science for healthy gums and strong teeth. And we'll leave no smile behind.
Christmas ni sahi ishafika na ni kubwa kubwa. Kweli? Hii Kristi ni bomba na Blue Santa kupitia star 570 hash option 1. Rudia. Star 570 hash option 1. Iko PlayStation 5 na 55 inch TV na iko 500,000 Kenyan shillings.
Nambuzi moja?
Nambuzi. 1 million Kenyan shillings na Samsung S24 Ultra.
Nambuzi moja?
Iko 2 million Kenyan shillings na iPhone 16 Pro Max.
Nambuzi mbili.
Blue Santa amekuja na zawadi kibao. Nani kubwa Hapa kuna ndogo ndogo. Hapa Christmas ni bomba.
Kenya Coast National Polytechnic is one of the leading TVET institutions in Kenya. Our hands-on training has ensured that our graduates acquire the necessary skills and competencies as required by the industry, leading to their absorption in the job market. We are inviting applications for various diploma, certificate and artisan courses for our January 2025 intake. We offer courses in maritime studies, engineering, health sciences, business and media studies, hospitality and tourism, ICT, driving courses and recognition of prior learning programs among other courses. We accept KUCCPS and SSP students and also accept transfer students. For more information, call the number on the screen or visit our website. Kenya Coast National Polytechnic, a regional flagship maritime transport.
Welcome back. Now, the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers has called for the reinstatement of 46 clinicians who were dismissed by the Kirinyaga County government in 2019. The clinicians were dismissed after participating in a national strike, and the county executive got a court order declaring the strike null and void. However, a Labour court ruling in Nyeri ordering their reinstatement in the county government has yet to comply.
Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, led by their chairperson Peterson Wachira, emphasized that the order issued by the Labour Court in Nyeri requiring the reinstatement of the clinical officers is clear and must be respected.
In 2021, the Public Service Commission, in line with their mandate as stipulated under the County Governments Act, had the appeal from the union, appeal that we did against the decision to dismiss our colleagues. That appeal was upheld and a directive was issued by the Public Service Commission directing that our colleagues be reinstated.
The order granted by Justice Onesmus Makau directed the reinstatement of the 46 clinicians who were unlawfully sacked in 2019. Wachira pointed out that the 60-day period for the execution of the court's decree had already expired in October, and the clinicians are entitled to return to their positions.
It was expected that from the 5th day of October, these officers should have been reinstated.
The union has expressed frustration over the county's continued failure to reinstate the health practitioners, emphasizing the adverse impact on the clinicians' careers and livelihoods.
Most of these people are actually the children of this county, have had to suffer from 2019, but more so from 2021, even after the Public Service Commission gave a directive, without the county taking these steps.
The union expressed disappointment in the county government's actions, pointing out that the termination of the 46 clinicians only worsened the shortage of healthcare workers in the region.
Ombi letu ni ya kwamba kwa hii serikali tafadhali waweze kutii sheria, kwa sababu tumeweza kupata malalamiko ya kwamba hatuna madaktari wa kutosha hapa Kirinyaga. Swali letu ni je, itakuwaje madaktari wamesimamishwa kazi na wakati wananchi wanalalamika ya kwamba hawapati huduma safi ama ambayo inastahili kwa sababu kuna madaktari watoshi hapa.
Martine Maslin for Prime Edition.
The social justice centers in the coastal region have raised a red flag over escalating rate of insecurity. Now, according to the centers, findings from their community engagement forums and rapid response teams highlight an increase in cases of theft and robbery with violence, among other forms of crime.
Theft, robbery with violence, gender-based violence, land injustices and harassment have been listed as the most critical challenges confronting the coastal region.
It is high time the government comes out and protects its people. If it doesn't protect its people, who is going to protect them? We are paying taxes in this country because we need protection. We are paying taxes because we want to live in peace and harmony. So the government has a mandate for us to live in peace.
The organizations have attributed the growing threats to escalating poverty levels, arguing that the socio-economic challenges facing the coastal communities are diminishing trust in government.
Most for many families in our region, it has become a period of fear due to these insecurity challenges. Reason being, increase of level of poverty, lack of trust in government readiness mechanism, corruption by security agencies, political leaders by engaging youth against their rival by failing to provide solution to problem faced by the youth.
The social justice centers are now calling on the coast regional security apparatus and relevant authorities to take immediate and decisive action to tackle the pressing issues.
Tunaomba IG na regional commissioner na regional commander waweze kuongeza zile patrols katika hizi sehemu ambazo ni hotspot ambazo tumezitaja. Wahakikishe kwamba presence ya polisi iko ili waweze kudetect, kwa sababu ni kazi yao kudetect na kuprevent crime kabla haijafanyika. Vile vile tunataka hizi idara husika pia ziweze kufanya civic education, kuwaeleza wananchi waweze kupata matumaini kwamba wakienda katika ofisi ya serikali watahudumiwa bila ya kupeana hongo au bila mapendeleo.
The centers further appeal to the community to remain vigilant and adopt precautionary measures to protect themselves and their families.
Wananchi wao wenyewe pia wawe macho, wasaidiane, waweze kuhakikisha kwamba wanaripoti any suspicious activity ambayo inaweza kuchangia katika uvunjaji wa usalama, waweze kuripoti katika vitengo vinavyohusika. Basi wote tushirikiane kuhakikisha kwamba kuna usalama.
For Prime Edition, I'm Abdulaziz Abeid.
To the corridors of justice, the two Asian brothers, Kuldeep Madan Sapra and Ashman Madan Mohan Sapra, who were accused of forging succession documents in their kin's 700 million shillings estate, have a case to answer. Chief Magistrate Susan Shitubi determined that the prosecution had presented sufficient evidence to warrant the accused being placed on their defense. Our reporter Letua Deborah has this and more on the scales of justice.
The duo Kuldeep Madan Sapra and Ashman Madan Mohan Sapra are accused of falsifying documents to obtain letters of administration for the estate of their late brother Yogesh Madan Johan Sapra during proceedings before High Court Judge Isaac Lenaula. They allegedly attempt to acquire property, including land, apartments and businesses worth Kenya shillings 700 million from Dr. Nishan Rajedra Kumar Purthy, the legitimate beneficiary of the estate. They had purported to be a bona fide administrators of the estate. The court directed the accused to present their defense before delivery of the judgment. Elsewhere, the Director of Public Prosecutions has consolidated two cases involving Rosemary Mudeu Muathe and Winfred Wandai Kisau, who are accused of conspiring to murder businessman Anthony Maina Muthai. Police investigations revealed that Wandai introduced Muathe to a hitman, Marvin Omondi Absalom, and the trio had several meetings in Nairobi and its environs between July 1st and August 1st, 2024 to plan the crime. The suspects are out on a cash bail of Kenya shillings 500,000 each, with the pre-trial proceedings scheduled for January 29th, 2025. Finally, yesterday, a fraud suspect alias Kemboi was arraigned in court after being apprehended at Jomo Kenyatta International Airport while allegedly attempting to flee the country. Kemboi is accused of defrauding Impala Re Company at Kenya shillings 49.5 million between February 1st and April 1st, 2022 through a conspiracy at Vutaride Company in Westlands. Additionally, he faces charges of obtaining 500 litres of Pramitol 2SE worth Kenya shillings 8.25 million from the same company under false pretenses by claiming it was a part of a legitimate supply contract. The DPP argued that a warrant of arrest was in effect and that accusers' attempt to leave the country demonstrated an intention to evade prosecution. While Kemboi's lawyer opposed charges, citing a stay order issued by the High Court in another related case, Chief Magistrate Susan Shitubi ordered his remand at Capitol Hill Police Station, pending her ruling on Friday regarding plea taking.
This court has been misled that the accused person appealed the decision of the court. But the order supplied to the court indicates that the applicant is the DPP, which is a fact on the face of it. They appealed, and in our response, we made further applications which have been granted by the court.
I need to appreciate what is happening. As you know, this is not my matter. I cannot just make a decision without going through the file.
Letua Debra for Prime Edition.
Now, a row is unfolding at the old Teleposta flats in Nairobi as residents accuse unknown individuals of attempting to illegally seize their land. The tenants claimed that the land, which they have occupied for the past 20 years, was previously owned by Teleposta Kenya before sale to them in 2004. The residents are now appealing to the government to intervene and protect their rights. They fear that without swift action, they may lose their valuable land and the amenities it provides to the community.
This thing came about a month ago, and I was in Nakuru. I was called and I was told that there are people who try to come and fence this place and claim that it is theirs. And we have a title, we have a title deed. We have the papers to show that we are the owners, legal owners of this place. And so when we heard that there are strangers who came, we could not understand.
Tuko hali ya kawaida, lakini tuko na wasiwasi sababu hatujui kunaenda namna gani, sababu watu wanapoangalia hii sehemu nyingine tuko na parking kidogo, magari hawezi toshea.
We are appealing to the government if they can come in and assist us. And we are afraid because we are afraid maybe these goons, they can come again, and we are not able to do our day-to-day calls because we are afraid.
Now to matters business. High business operational costs and unfair competition from illicit trade are the key reasons as to why some businesses have been exiting the Kenyan market. Private businesses say they are keen on a predictable regulatory environment and tax regime. This has prompted the government to set up a 10-member task force to probe the exit of businesses and recommend ways to address the issue.
Companies that have exited Kenya are GlaxoSmithKline, Game Stores, Bet-In and ShopRite. The company cited factors ranging from regulatory changes to high operational costs among the factors that informed their decision to exit the Kenyan market.
First of all, you're going down. Is it because of a government regulation or just because of your internal issues? Okay? But that notwithstanding, we are collaborating with the Ministry of Labour and the AG once they receive the notification to share with us so that we can have a program on the same.
Private sector players say unpredictable regulatory frameworks characterized by frequent changes in tax policies is affecting the business environment.
This team here is going to be focused now on the
regulations that are impeding business, and that requires a bit of time.
They're not paying anything, and we are paying everything. That makes our products go up. The deregulation of levies will, to some degree, help, but preventing the illicit trade will help a lot more.
Businesses are also concerned about illicit trade that they say pose unfair competition.
Enforcement has to be done at the border points, at the ports, whatever port of entry is being used. And they need a lot of knowledge to understand what is coming in, and is that what is being declared, is it not what is being declared. These are some of the things that we see in the marketplace.
This has prompted the government to appoint a 10-member task force that will analyze the current regulatory framework and make proposals on how to improve the business environment.
County governments should set up investment in new technologies such as modern pipelines and smart meters to reduce non-revenue water losses. Water, Sanitation and Irrigation Cabinet Secretary Engineer Eric Muga says fixing inefficiencies in water supply systems will help save a huge portion of public finances. Muga made his remarks during a tour of water projects including Nyamo Dam in Manyara, Samburu County.
The challenge is the infrastructure is old, more than 40 years, the last mile connectivity infrastructure. And the treatment plant, the existing treatment plant, despite the one that we are building right now, was built in the year 1984. So right now, they're in the process of having a hybrid system. They are solarizing the existing treatment plant. The works are around 62%, and we're expecting to be completed by the mid of latest February. But the long-term game, which is supply of water from Nyamo Dam to Samburu County, to Samburu, to Manyara town, is to ensure that the county government, working in liaison with the national government, come up with a system to expand the existing system network.
Now, there's need to integrate financial literacy in the school curriculum and make it mandatory to ensure learners are empowered with financial matters from a young age. This is according to the Kenya Police DT SACCO National Chairperson, David Mategua, who attributes some of the challenges faced in society to low financial literacy skills.
I propose this that going forward, I think for us to make sure that the culture of saving is cultivated in this country is that we need to start it from the initial, from the primary level. We make it a subject that schools can put that in their syllabus, that they can take through the young people in terms of how cooperatives work, how beneficial they are, how they can make you a better person in the future.
This festive season, let the joy of togetherness fill your hearts and homes. Celebrate responsibly and make memories that last a lifetime. Choose activities that bring happiness and health. Avoid alcohol and drugs in this festive season. We're working together to ensure everyone's safety. Report illegal alcohol and drug activities in your area. This festive season, let's protect what matters most, our lives and those we love. Celebrate responsibly.
You're still watching Prime Edition. Now, the Kenya Revenue Authority has announced a new computation of the pay as you earn to align with the Tax Laws Amendment Act of 2024. Commissioner of Domestic Tax, Rispa Simiu, says the changes to the computation will be effective this month and will affect taxable income deductions, tax reliefs and exemptions.
The Kenya Revenue Authority has published pay-as-you-earn changes that will guide the computation of taxable employment income. The amendments will take effect on December 27th, will impact how employers calculate taxable employment income. The taxman says the amounts deductible in determining taxable employment income include the Affordable Housing Levy under the Affordable Housing Act 2024, contribution to a post-retirement medical fund limited to 15,000 per month, Social Health Insurance Fund contributions, mortgages interest of up to 360,000 annually for funds borrowed from specific financial institution for residential property, and contribution to registered pension or provident funds kept at 360,000 shillings annually. Members who have contributed for more than 20 years will now access their retirement benefits tax-free. In a raft of tax changes, the Kenya Revenue Authority has announced that it will exempt gratuity and employee retirement savings from taxation. A number of benefits extended by the employer will be exempted from taxation, and they include benefits valued at less than 60,000 shillings annually and meals provided by an employer capped at 50,000 per month. The new computation, KRA says, is in line with the enactment of Tax Laws Amendment Act of 2024. Benson Rioba reporting for Prime Edition.
So if indeed you are in the formal employment space, the main question maybe you're having right now is that how will that affect your take home? You can bet it will. Now the government is establishing the National Cybersecurity Agency, Cybersecurity Center of Excellence and the National Cybersecurity Operations Center to strengthen cybersecurity. Here's Alan Aoko with the details.
The Ministry of Interior and National Administration currently attributes the spike in cyber cases to enhanced monitoring capabilities and the increased exploitation of system vulnerabilities fueled by increased use of the internet-enabled devices. To address this, upskilling of both public officers as well as Kenyans is being stepped up to improve their ability to stop or flag cybercrime activities.
We're investing in long-term governance initiatives, including the proposed establishment of the National Cybersecurity Agency, the National Cybersecurity Operations Center, and the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. These entities will require robust support to enhance our cybersecurity capabilities.
And now, to match skills and facilities in the fight against cybercrime, the government is collaborating with companies like Huawei Technologies to train state officers to tackle cyber risks that pose a danger to critical infrastructure and sensitive data.
The best practices out there are leveraging on the emerging technologies so that we are better prepared and tooled to deal with the challenges within the cyber security space.
Huawei believes strongly in partnership with the collaboration, whether with the government, private sector, and NGOs. We believe that only if we work together we can hope to build a capacity.
They were speaking during the signing of a memorandum of understanding between Huawei Technologies and the National Computer and Cybercrime Coordination Committee, NC4.
This MOU is going to deepen our cooperation, particularly in the space of emerging technologies, and allow us to consolidate the progress that we have made to date.
Alan Aoko, Prime Edition.
Now, if you are into recreational fishing, hiking, biking, or water sport activities, then Sagana in Kirinyaga County should be among places you should consider for your next travel. Sagana is a perfect escape from the hustle and bustle of the city, as highlighted on tonight's episode of Magical Scenes.
What comes to your mind when you hear of Sagana in Kirinyaga County? Sagana could mean bountifulness, rich in greenery, priding in one of the longest rivers in Kenya, and also a destination that is inspirational for the Rumba song, Mtoto wa Sagana. River Sagana is the lifeline of activities in Sagana. While here, you can engage in water sports activities such as kayaking or recreational fishing. This tranquil environment is ideal for outdoor events such as biking or hiking.
So the water rafting actually is the best experience that you can get when you come to Sagana, and we give you at a very good rate. We connect with the water, and we make sure when you go to the river, you enjoy the water rafting in River Sagana.
The conducive weather coupled with River Sagana are responsible for green vegetation in the area, attracting both botanical students and researchers. The green vegetation also makes Sagana a bird's paradise. As you wander through Sagana, you are greeted by these beautifully manicured gardens that adorn the area. Vibrant flowers bloom alongside an array of fruit-bearing trees where mangoes, avocados, and bananas dangle like jewels, inviting visitors to relax in nature's bounty.
You see, like the Garden of Eden, they are fruits. And when you come in Maya, make sure when you go to our gardens, there is, you get the fruits. You get the mangoes, you get the pawpaws, you get the bananas. And for those repeated customers, we usually give them for free.
So we have that song called From Mtoto wa Sagana, which is associated with Sagana for various reasons. Those reasons depend on how people understand it. It's usually very quiet, and for any kind of meeting, it's okay.
At dawn or dusk, the sun rises or sets over the horizon, casting a warm glow on the gardens and the river, transforming Sagana into a magical gem. Chuma Odim, Magical Sense in Sagana.
Mtoto wa Sagana indeed. Now, unique traditions and cultural practices by minority communities will be included in Kenya's tourism calendar to foster inclusion. Tourism Cabinet Secretary Rebecca Miano says monetization of dances, attire, language and cuisines will go a long way in promoting and preserving cultural diversity.
Their songs and dance tell tales of their unique lives as minority communities. However, the harsh reality depicts culture and dialects that are at the edge of extinction due to assimilation by dominant communities as well as urbanization.
Na ndio maana tunajua tutatumia utalii kuendelea kuwashughulikia na kuleta watalii katika sehemu zenu ambao wataleta pesa za kigeni na maendeleo mengine.
To preserve these cultures, the government is undertaking an inclusion campaign to showcase various aspects that define the communities.
The stories of the Kenya's minorities ought to be told and retold. Further, we need to institutionalize redistribution within the provisions of our laws.
The efforts are expected to boost the contribution of cultural tourism in overall tourism numbers.
This is a culture na Mungu haikufanya makosa kutupea lugha na culture. Where have we been forgotten? We are not so bold. We are also make cave dwellers. That is all.
Going forward, the minority communities are calling for an annual cultural festival. Regina Manyara reporting for Prime Edition.
Well, now I guess you know that we are not only at the front office, we are also behind the scenes. Well, now we're still keeping up with Martha's business. Is that, did you know that you can make baked goods, including chapatis and mandazis, using gluten-free flour from cassava, rice, sorghum, or green bananas? Yes, entrepreneurs are now targeting healthy, conscious Kenyans with the flour as it gets increasingly popular in a bid to promote healthier diets and reduce post-harvest losses. Take a look.
Doreen Achieng, the co-founder of Taliana Foods, is just one of the growing number of alternative flour producers in the country who have recognized a niche in targeting a growing number of healthy, conscious Kenyans. Why? Based on data from the National Cancer Registry at the Kenya Medical Research Institute, KEMRI, and other sources, diet-related cancers such as esophageal, colorectal, stomach, prostate, and breast cancers appear to predominate among Kenyans.
We have a lot of early adolescent debut that is caused by hormonal issues that are caused by gluten in some cases.
Gluten, a protein found in wheat, triticale, barley, and sometimes oats, lends elasticity to dough and acts as a natural adhesive, binding food together. However, increasing concerns over gluten consumption have arisen due to the rising prevalence of gluten-related disorders, including celiac disease and allergies. Some of these conditions can severely impact vital organs like the intestines. Achieng says progressively, a business case is being made in alternative flour.
So what will sustain your business is not only the demand for a product that is an alternative to, let's say, wheat flour, but what impact are you having in your community? Are there lives that are being transformed by what you are doing?
Achieng's product range, which includes a flour for bread, cakes, cookies, chapati, among others, crafted from banana, cassava, pumpkin, and sweet potato flour, amid other ingredients. The production process involves sourcing raw materials from local farmers, peeling, chopping, solar drying, and grinding them into flour.
The rules are very stringent in terms of raw material use. So from the farm, how that product is farmed, if it is cassava, we leverage also on different or specific, highly nutritious new root vegetables. So like the orange flesh, purple flesh, sweet potatoes. When you're using this niche or this highly nutritious root vegetables, the price will obviously go up because it's not like your regular sweet potato.
Entrepreneurs like Achieng are now calling for more capacity building of small-scale farmers if the country is to benefit from quality alternative flour at a larger scale for more impact to people's health.
So I want to pull an aggregate group of farmers, but they don't have an extension officer. So when I reject a product because it is substandard, because I know what I want for my end product, there's an issue of communication there.
The ordinary Kenyan walks into a supermarket and finds a finished product like this one, an unassuming box of alternative flour. This flour is gluten-free, and as Kenyans are increasingly turning to this alternate method of eating their chapatis or their mandazis, the call from processors and farmers is that make processing this easier, increase the extension services to the farm where the raw materials of this product is found. Alanauko, Prime Edition.
Now that was an appropriate story there by Alan Aoko, given that we're headed to the festive season. But my question is, would you prefer eating, chapati made out of green grams, that is ndengu as you know it, then also taking ndengu as stew? Well, as you think about it, a number of herders in Isiolo County have started cultivation of fast-growing juanco grass as spices to address food issues. The juanco grass is a drought-resistant and has high protein as well as sugar content, making it suitable for dairy production.
The National Drought Management Authority estimates that Kenya lost about 2.6 million livestock during the recent drought occasioned by 5 failed rain seasons. The authority says the livestock subsector lost over 226 billion shillings in missed revenue due to loss of pasture. To mitigate against pasture loss, a section of livestock farmers in Isiolo have started cultivation of fast-growing juncao grass species.
Juncao ni foda ambaye tumeanza kuipanda, ambayo iko nyuma yangu ni sample, tulipanda tarehe 10 Januari mwaka huu. Na hii ambayo unaona sasa hapa, hii ni ile germination ya 3. Kumaanisha tumekata mara 2, hii ni ya 3.
Unlike conventional grasses that take 6 months to mature, juncao takes only 3 months.
Hii sio kama ile nyasi ya kitambo tulikuwa tunavuna na miezi 6 ama mwaka moja. Hii kulingana na ile eneo huko climate, it is between 2 months to 3 months maximum. Sana 2.5 months ushavuna.
The grass, which has a 25-year lifespan, is less labor-intensive and rich in protein, one of the key ingredients in animal feed manufacturing.
Juncao iko na crude protein, ama zile madini ya proteini 18%. So saile unalisha kuna hiyo mnyama ama ng'ombe wanahitaji proteini. So compared to others inaleta 18%.
The farmers have value-added the grass and are now selling it to neighboring counties.
More than 20% production imepanda by 20%, na tunatarajia itafika hata 50% kulingana na vile tumeona nyasi ikienda.
Winslow Spamba for Prime Edition.
Star 570 hash. Option 1 kuna PS5 na ni full package na inakuja na JBL Party Box. Hiyo boom experience pia iko.
Now, Kenya is diversifying her export portfolio by expanding volumes to existing markets while exploring new ones in the Middle East, Asia, and South America to reduce over-reliance on traditional exports while unlocking new economic opportunities across textiles and technology. Now, Trevor Nyendo had a sit-down with Trade Principal Secretary Alfred Kombudo, who shed light on Kenya's plan to secure 25% of the Middle East livestock and meat market and how Kenya is enhancing her trade competitiveness. Trevor, over to you.
Thank you very much and a very good evening to you. As 2024 comes to a close, Kenya's trade landscape has seen significant milestones, but not without challenges from the regional development under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement to Kenya's evolving position in global markets. This interview with the State Department for Trade Principal Secretary Alfred Kombudo is a platform to reflect, analyze, and set the tone for 2025. P.S. Alfred Kombudo, thank you so much for granting us your time. congratulations on your recent recognition as the Chief of the Order of the Burning Spear.
Thank you very much.
Probably you can begin by telling us, how would you rate Kenya's trade performance on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest?
We've had a good run this year in terms of particularly our export performance, and on domestic trade we have also undertaken lots of initiatives to try and make it easier to trade. So I would go with an 8.5.
An 8.5. Yes. Interesting. So obviously not a 10 over 10, but you'll tell us why not 10 over 10. Maybe you can begin by giving us some of these key successes that you've been able to achieve in the year 2024.
On the export sector, we have actually had a strong run for some of our key commodities. We have done lots of exports in our core commodities like in tea, in the flower sector, in coffee, and also in other areas such as cement, medicines, and other areas. So more or less, if you look at our export performance, we are still at about 7.5 billion on the area of goods, and maybe just about $5.5 billion in services. So we are seeing a situation whereby we've held fort for commodities, services, exports are growing. But of course, we can always do better, and that remains the key responsibility for the State Department and for the ministry.
Interesting. And of course, this comes at a time when Kenya has had different policy developments. We've had the AFCFTA, we've had about COMESA, have had about EAC, SADC, the tripartite free trade area.
Yes.
How have these government policies impacted trade and investment in the country?
It's been a very active year for us as we have convened joint trade commissions between us and other countries. These are our instruments that we use to identify and resolve barriers to trade that have occurred over the year, some of which have also been issues that have been quite stagnant over a lot of years. And for example, we successfully held a Kenya-Tanzania Joint Trade Committee, which resolved more than about 40 out of an existing 58 NTBs. And for those that we have not basically resolved, we are actually activating the mechanisms to ensure that those are resolved. On the area of market access, we have closed very recently the EU Economic Partnership Agreement that gives Kenya access to 27 countries for a 16 trillion euro market. We are now writing out the strategies and engaging the private sector and sensitizing them on how to utilize that market. We have also done a lot of work within the regional front. We have concluded an agreement called the Tripartite Free Trade Area that basically, once it comes into operation, brings in tariff reductions for key markets like South Africa, which should be very good for the export of black tea into South Africa, which is very popular there. We have also managed to advance quite significantly some of the negotiations in the African Continental Free Trade Area. A bit of pending work there has to do with the ongoing work that we are trying to conclude that should be good for our motor vehicle assembly sector, which is to agree on the rules of origin. What is the amount of local content that one can have to call a car a Kenyan car? And therefore, we believe that if we get this right, then we should be able to ride on the back of renewed interest like Volkswagen, that is very keen to come back into the market. And then also, we should then be able to finalize discussions on AFCTA that allow us to basically also determine the rules of origin for the pharmaceutical sector. And we hope that some of these sectors, in addition to our core sectors, will now start seeing renewed investment.
Interesting, and that you mentioned about the AFCFTA. Of course, there is the protocol on digital trade, maybe that which aims to establish the harmonized rules and common principles to enable and support digital trade across Africa. Probably could shed more light on this and how this has come about.
Our digitally delivered exports, I believe, are growing at more than 10% per annum. Our services exports are almost equaling our export of goods. This is being driven by several factors, but key to those factors include digitally delivered services. We have been working, for example, with the United Arab Emirates on a series of trade measures, and part of what we have discussed with them is basically to see whether we can open up fresh markets for services in the UAE in areas connected to construction, engineering, and other professional services.
It's important that you mentioned about the Kenya-UAE Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, and it's something that I really want us to get into. We've seen the government probably moving, has been advancing conversations and negotiations with the United Arab Emirates. We have seen the G2G deals, and now with this SEPA, it's called the Kenya-UAE Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, where Kenya, we understand that UAE ranks 6th amongst Kenya's trading partners, and we understand there are conversations that are advanced staged, like you mentioned, on deliberations to finalize the SEPA. So what are some of these technical negotiations for phase one?
Our key interest there is 3 or 4 or 5 things. We see lots of opportunities for us to increase meat exports, not just there, but to the rest of the Middle East. We see strong capabilities for fruits and vegetable exports. We see strong capabilities for export of several other commodities, but we also see strong potential for collaboration in ICT, in logistics, and other areas. Just to share a bit of example in the area of meat exports. Kenya currently exports about $140 million worth of meat and meat products. About $120 million of that goes into the Middle East alone. And from $120 million, $80 million goes to the UAE. So the UAE is important to us, not just as a destination market, but because it is a market which basically does a lot of transshipment, both into the rest of the Middle East and into the world. And therefore, the UAE SEPA is an instrument that basically helps connect us to that economy, but also helps create stronger opportunities for us to basically tie in our logistics for the rest of the world.
We have seen, for example, trade with other economic partners like the US, the Chinese market. Maybe you could delve much into that. Of course, we can mention about the EU and horticulture.
The US remains a key market for us. We probably did about $500 million last year. It remains a very strong market for our textile and apparel sector, which we believe we are just only scratching the surface, because we do have the capabilities to be able to provide much more into that market. And therefore, we are keen to ensure that we do leverage more investment into our special economic zones. And the conversations we are having there, including the Strategic Trade and Investment Partnership and our keen interest to ensure that the African Growth Opportunity Act is renewed, are some of the things that are forming our diplomacy in that market. We're exporting now about $1 billion to the European Union. Most of it is commodities, but we see the potential to be able to diversify our exports there, including in sectors such as textile and apparel, whereby we do not have a lot of exports there. India, China, Russia, and several of these other markets are markets that we also see potential upside in, as far as diversifying, for example, our tea trade, diversifying our coffee trade, and also then being able to reduce the deficit we have with some of these countries.
You've mentioned about commodity export and trade. Let's talk about service mobility. What are some of the, of course, we understand that this service mobility is a critical focus of the government, and we've seen it growing, and of course, as professionals try and seek to expand its access to global markets. Maybe from where you sit, how is the progress in exporting of service?
First and foremost, the performance in our services exports have been quite good. I believe those that are digitally delivered are growing by more than 10% per annum, which signifies a response to our encouragement for young people to be able to get into the gig economy and to be able to supply services remotely. Kenya is now a net positive trader of services, because we actually export more services than we import services. What we are therefore encouraging is the implementation of our e-commerce strategy, which then we have an intergovernmental team that constantly looks at the legal reform measures that need to be taken, that constantly looks at how we improve trade facilitation measures, transport and logistics, and so on and so forth, so that this sector is able to grow.
Let me take you back to the free trade of goods and of commodities in the East African region. Yes. There have been concerns over, people have been calling on favorable, or advocating for favorable policies, where you've seen a lot of maybe goods that come from other countries, our neighbors, which are at a subsidized rate of production, and they're coming into the Kenyan market at a way less price, but it's making Kenyan goods not very well competitive among its own consumers, and Kenyans have been moving more into importing things like eggs into the country. What are some of those engagements and stakeholder engagements as a department that you're doing, and of course as a government, to help address some of these concerns?
Our chief issue is to make sure that there are no non-tariff barriers affecting our trade in goods. And that's what informs our joint trade committee meetings, whereby we basically do assessments and try to resolve some of these issues. Number two is that we believe that trade is an enabler for everybody. And therefore, the movement of goods across borders is something that is of a net benefit rather than a deficit. We, as a country, get orders from very large countries that are in need of pulses, are in need of grains, are in need of products connected to those. And we need to have trade in order to build bulk to the sizes that will then be able to satisfy international markets.
All right, it's part of the mandate of the State Department to protect Kenyans against illicit trade, to coordinate a multi-agency task force on the elimination of illicit trade. Maybe you can give us some of the trends that have been you've witnessed in the year 2024, and what are some of the measures that you've taken to sort of counter illicit trade in the country, where Kenya loses a lot of revenue from illicit trade?
Our work continues with anti-counterfeit measures to ensure that honest producers are able to be the ones that have their products on the shelf. We have operationalized the Kenya Trade Remedies Agency, and the Kenya Trade Remedies Agency is what I would call our trade defense system. And a trade defense system basically means that you have an agency that is able to do investigations whereby members of the World Trade Organization or members of COMESA are bringing in products which, for example, may be claimed to be from that country but could be from elsewhere, or that there could be subsidies that basically significantly alter the price of those products to a point whereby our manufacturers cannot compete. And if they do that outside the WTO rules, it becomes very important to have an agency that is able to investigate and basically have measures including putting countervailing duties and so forth.
When we started this interview, I asked you how much you'd rate Kenya's trade performance in 2024, and you said an 8.5%. So because there have been challenges, of course, we cannot ignore the fact that there have been challenges in the year 2024. What are some of these challenges that you've encountered as a State Department for Trade, and of course that have affected trade in the country?
We have had situations, for example, where some of our key markets have had currency convertibility challenges, and that has affected how soon, how quickly, for example, some of our tea exporters can be paid. We have also seen some of the markets which have been key for us have internal governance challenges, which has depressed the importation of certain products, again tea, that we have been accustomed to taking to those products. The solution for that is diversification, and this year we have held several outreach meetings, and we are keen to ensure that we diversify our products into fresh markets.
What are some of the strategic measures that you're taking to address some of these trade barriers? We saw the President recently just signed the business laws bill, which is now the business laws 2024. which was probably having some, was amended because of some policies that were regarded as retrogressive. Well, what are some of these key challenges that you've seen or hindrances that you've seen, the barriers in trade that you're seeking to address in the coming year?
The Business Amendment Bill removed the levy on craft paper. We still have more work to do. For example, on the EAC front, there still is a stay of execution to the common external tariff, which basically still then places the entry of craft paper at, I believe, 35%, and it should probably be closer to something like 10%. So then those are some of the other measures then that hopefully as we go along, we will work with the packaging sector to ensure that on the short term, they have access to the raw materials that they need. But our key interest is to ensure full Kenyan capability to make a full range of packaging products, including from the primary source of wood and so on and so forth. So that's where we hope to get to in the coming years.
Yeah, we've seen a trade, for example, between Kenya and probably Tanzania decelerating in the recent 1 year. Maybe you can give a comment on that. Why have we seen such kind of a trend?
The trade between us, I think, remains strong. We're importing a lot of food products, which is Tanzania's strength in terms of the products that they have been bringing into the Kenyan market. And we've still been taking a lot of manufactured products into the Tanzanian market. When NTBs do arise, we basically try to ensure that we fix them. We solve issues that they do have, for example, in terms of the truck charges that we have been levying. We have agreed with them that we shall make those charges consistent to the COMESA rate for those charges. And therefore, they also have resolved some of the issues that we've been having. So it's a dynamic environment which we constantly work towards making sure is smooth.
A dynamic environment indeed. And of course, now let's look forward towards 2025. How is Kenya positioning itself in the global economy amid shifting trade dynamics? We understand that the U.S. will have a new president next month.
Our trade policy transcends administrations. It has remained strong throughout, and we are keen to ensure that in the sectors whereby we see lots of headroom, we are going to be institutioning measures for those sectors to grow. Coffee, tea, textile and apparel, technology related, and so on and so forth.
2024 is coming to an end at a time when probably many traders and businessmen and women in this country feel that the environment has been a bit hostile. Some are complaining that businesses have not been doing very well. That is 2024. What are some of the opportunities that you look at in 2025 just to give them hope and for businessmen in the coming year?
Statistics actually do show that the tough groundwork has been done. And that in 2025, we are now looking to build upon those measures. In 2025, we are keen to ensure that the commodity exchange is launched, which will ensure that post-harvest losses because of not then being able to have ready markets for produce should be something that should be reduced through this initiative. In 2025, because in 2024 we completed designing and doing the standard operating procedures and basically beginning to certify warehouses. We look forward to doing much more of this work in 2025. And we also then believe that we are going to create fresh opportunities also for our financial services sector, because we have a more than 300 billion shilling commodity sector, which is currently not very structured, but which, when structured, creates opportunities for financial institutions, creates opportunities for warehouse operators, creates opportunities in real estate for people who basically want to build industrial infrastructure, and then also creates a lot of aggregation opportunities for traders. But the most important of all is that it shall reduce the post-harvest losses that our farmers are suffering from, which which currently are as high as 35%.
Quite a very interesting dialogue we've had here. We really do appreciate your time, PS. Thank you very much for granting us your time. That has been PS Alfred Kombodo. We really do appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And also thank you for giving us your ear and eyes during this time. It is our hope that you found valuable insights from this conversation. My name is Trevor Ngendo, and on behalf of the entire crew behind the scenes that made this possible, we wish you a Merry Christmas and prosperity in your business in the year 2025. Good night.
Glad for staying with us. It is time for sports with me, Bernard Okumu, and we begin this evening with athletics, where the Baringetuny Mountain Run in Nandi County on the 18th of January will kickstart the 2025 Magical Kenya Mountain and Trail Series. Now, the series, launched today by the Kenya Tourism Board and Athletics Kenya, is aimed at positioning Kenya as a sports and adventure destination. The Magical Kenya Mountain and Trail Series will feature 6 mountain and trail running events across Kenya's unique landscapes, namely the Baringetuny Mountain Run, Manyara Great Run Edition in May, Mount Kenya Mountain Run Edition in June, and Aberdares Trail Run Edition in August, as well as Mount Longonot Edition in November and the Elgon Run in December.
Thank you very much, Kamau. Tupige makofi. Let's appreciate them, ladies and gentlemen, as they exchange.
We want to give an opportunity for people to run there, but also to develop the facilities and that can be used to move to reach to those particular mountains.
You look at this trail, the kind of food we eat contributes a lot to make Nandi and to make Kenya an international hotbed of athletics.
As they run in this particular event that we are talking about here, they will not just be running for nothing. You know, we must also appreciate our athletes, appreciate the effort that they have put in, appreciate their talents, and so forth and so on. So we are going to award them with some cash money.
The mountain runs that Kenya is going to host this year is attracting the global participants. Since January to date, we have attracted just above 4,000 sports tourists to the country.
Athletics Kenya. Then the CEO also shines. And
moving on, golfer Michael Karanga was named the LG SJAC Sports Personality for the month of November 2024. Karanga earned this accolade following his stellar performance on the greens, highlighted by his successful defense of the Kenya Amateur Golf Championships title. Now, this victory was cemented by his November triumph in the Kiambu Open at his home ground in November, which secured his overall Kenya Amateur Golf Championship crown and guaranteed his participation in the 2025 Kenya Open, as well as Kenya's leading amateur golfer. Early in November, Karanga also defended the Manchester Silver title in Eldoret.
Karanga has been an outstanding golfer. He won the Kenya Golf Amateur 2024, which has also earned him a title in the Kenya Open 2025. Over and above that, he defended Kenya. He took Kenya in the team for the Africa Regional Golf Tournament in Rwanda, which not only positioned him as an outstanding player, but as a leader.
I've been playing golf since 2006, and by the grace of God, I was the Kenya Golfer #1 2023, and I've retained this title again and earned myself a ticket to Magical Kenya Open.
Congratulations to Karanga. Moving on to soccer, where Kenya has remained stagnant at 108th position in the latest FIFA World Rankings released today, despite a series of mixed results during the November international break. The Harambee Stars played to a 0-0 draw against South Sudan in the African Nations Championship qualifier, followed by goalless draws against Zimbabwe and Namibia in friendly matches. Morocco is the highest-ranked African team, holding the 14th spot in the latest rankings. Now, Morocco has been exceptional since 2020. 2022 when they secured a 4th place finish in the FIFA World Cup in Qatar. Senegal also made it into the top 20, ranked 17th place. Argentina, the 2022 World Cup champions, top the rankings, followed by France, the 2018 champions, in 2nd place. Spain, the 2010 World Cup champions, rank 3rd after winning the UEFA Nations League. And finally, to news making headlines across the borders, where Bukayo Saka says he and his Arsenal teammates want to win the Premier League or the Champions League this season. Now Mikel Arteta's Gunners qualified to the semi-finals of the English League Cup after Gabriel Jesus netted a hat-trick in the second half to secure a 3-2 win for his side against Crystal Palace. Meanwhile, Liverpool beat Southampton 2-1, while Newcastle United defeated Brentford 3-1. Manchester United face Tottenham Hotspur tonight. That's at 11 p.m. And of course, it is the quarter-final matches of the EFL Cup or the League Cup.
Mateta can go through. Mateta holding off his man and finishing beyond David. Joining the action, and he's found Jesus with a chance. Gabriel Jesus! Arsenal are level. Saka. Jesus! He's got the freedom of the half. And of course he... Klein. Nketiah. Dangerous ball in. Out as far as Tonali! Oh! Sandro Tonali into the... And then clipped into the box by Gordon. Tonali! Oh, what a goal! With Hall. It's Tron for it again. And it's come out to Bruno. And it's tapped in by Fabian. Spilled the shot from Hall. Bruno close to the post. The 4th official. Still time for Tonali to get his hat-trick. But Brentford are attacking at the moment. It's Mbermo and the cross to Wissa into the bottom corner.
A ball forward for Nunez, who's in on goal, and Darwin Nunez for Liverpool scores. Here's Gakpo, here's Elliott. Lovely shift, lovely goal. 2 goals. Nicely. This is Archer. Might have to do it on his own, which he does brilliantly. Outstanding.
Well, and that's where we leave it tonight from the sports desk. Thank you so much for watching. Let's do it again tomorrow. I'm Bernard Okumu.
Well, that puts a cap on matters Prime Edition tonight with changes to the cabinet, where now former Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe and former governors Lee Kinyanjui and William Kabogo are the latest entrants in President William Ruto's broad-based government. Further details, just in case you missed them, are available on our very active website. This is already changing the discourse on various social media platforms, so give your feedback. Our X handle is at KBC Channel 1. Happy holidays. I'm Regina, Manyara.
This festive season, let the joy of togetherness fill your hearts and homes. Celebrate responsibly. Report illegal alcohol and drug activities in your area. This festive season, let's protect what matters most, our lives and those we love. Celebrate responsibly.
Birthday saa hii ishafika na ni kubwa kubwa. Kweli? Hii Kristi ni bomba na Blue Santa kupitia star 570 hash option 1. Rudia. Star 570 hash option 1. Iko PlayStation 5 na 55 inch TV na iko 500,000 Kenyan shillings. Na mbuzi moja? Na mbuzi. 1 million Kenyan shillings na Samsung S24 Ultra. Na mbuzi moja? Iko 2 million Kenyan shillings na iPhone 16 Pro Max. Na mbuzi mbili. Blue Santa amekuja na zawadi kibao. Na ni kubwa kubwa. Hapa kuna ndogo ndogo. Hapa Christmas ni bomba.
Hello good people, this is Save Life. And Save Life tunazidi kubadilisha maisha pamoja. Thank you for your continued support. My name is Dr. Joseph Moreni. Save Life tuko Kenya nzima. In all the 47 counties. Tunaendelea kubadilisha maisha through your support. Through what you sacrifice. Be it 100, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000. May God bless you. Na Mungu, akubless, akuzidishie. This Christmas, this time to reflect what God has done in your life, and as well as sharing the love with others, sharing with our neighbors, sharing with the less fortunate in the community. So this is the time to give. This is the time to partner with Save Life. Save Life will give you that opportunity to serve God. Ukiwa pale nyumbani, ukiwa kazini. And this is amazing opportunity. As you normally know, that service to humanity is service to God. And giving is not losing. So thank you for your continued support. May God bless you. Na Mungu akuzidishie. We had a great year. And we have so many cases. From West Pokot, Wafula, ako salama. Unakumbuka tukiwa kule Narok. Kutembelea mama, tulienda kwake akasema mimi sijaisaidiwa na mtu anijui. Kwanza tukafika pale akapotea. Akaitwa na neighbor akaambiwa, watu wanabadilisha maisha. Tukachukua ule mama Joanita, tukamleta Nairobi, tukamfanya surgery na akarudi akiwa salama. God has been faithful. Tukatoka hapo tukaenda Eastern part. Tukachukua Dinda. Tukampeleka akafanywa surgery kwa pia na tumor. Tukatoka hapo. Nakumbuka tulikuwa na msichana kutoka kule Eastlands, kutoka kule Nyanza, Yvonne alikuwa amefura mguu, tukamchukua kana akafanywa surgery. So it has been a great year. God has been faithful. Nilikuwa hapa Nairobi, msichana Joyce alikuwa na matiti imefika hapa. Tukamchukua tukampeleka kule Kijabe na msichana saizi yako salama. So it has been a great year. So personally I'm happy. Na tunazidi kubadilisha maisha ya watu pamoja. May God bless you. Tuzidi kufanya kazi ya Mungu pamoja. Personally, I'm humbled to be used by God kufanya hii kazi. Na kama pia tulikuwa na msichana kutoka kule Wanjiro, kutoka kule Murang'a. Kwanza tulienda hospitali, tukalipa hospitali. Daktari akakula pesa na kumsaidia. Tukasema Wanjiro tutasimama na wewe. So tumekuwa na Wanjiro. Na God has been faithful because Wanjiro tulimpeleka hospitali, akafanywa surgery na Wanjiro ako salama. God has been faithful. Leo asubuhi nimepigiwa na Amos Maundo kutoka kule sehemu ya Eastern part. Akaniambia, Dr. Moreni, naendelea vizuri. Siku yote anacheza ball. I'm doing very well. And this is what Save Life is doing. God has been faithful. But pia kuna zile tumepata changamoto. Unapata kama wale wamekuwa na cancer. It has been tough. It doesn't na minor. Maina sasa nimetoka kuongea na mama. Ananiambia Maina, tulianza matibabu vizuri, tulianzia kule Kenyatta, tukaenda kule MP Sha na akaanza kufanywa pia ile radiation na tukafanya for quite some time na Maina ikaisha na akarudi salama, tukamrudisha kule kwao Nakuru. Na mama amenipia kaniambia Maina, ile tumor imerudi, imefunga mpaka haziongea. Cancer is a beast. Tunatembea na mtu kama a year or two, ile tumor inaisha inarudi. We have been working with Maina and will continue also supporting him. It is sad. Wala wanakumbuka Maina tena anatuhitaji. It is tough. Naongea na mama, nikamwambia nitaenda kumuona kesho na pia nitakumbusha Wakenya wale wanasimama na yeye pia tuzidi kusimama na yeye. It is not easy, but tutazidi pia kuomba pamoja, tuzidi kumsupport. Cancer is a beast na mtu wote ama familia yote iko na mtu ako na cancer. Don't give up. Let's continue being strong. Let's continue fighting. Na zaidi pia